Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 203. It's Wednesday, Whiskey Wednesday. We've got some new faces on the podcast tonight. We've got some familiar ones like Nate over there. I'm Steve Crane. We've got some familiar faces in the garage. You guys might hear from them on the live studio audience as well. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, like I just got an alert that we are going live. So if you guys are listening for the first time now or after the fact, make sure you turn on your notifications on the Bourbon and BS podcast Facebook page, and you guys will get notifications hopefully when we go live, because we like to say 7:30, then 7:45, and then things happen like a dog or whatever, things like that. But I want to introduce, we've got to my left, your right is Eric Baldridge. Eric, welcome.
Hello.
And to his left and your right, and Nate's right and your left, it's got to be your bowl. Is Brad Sibley. Welcome, Brad.
Good evening.
These guys have been a part of the community and been a part of doing customers at Tinderbox at Easton for several years. We've got some history together with things like the Smoking 10 event you guys have been a part of. You've also been a lifeline one of those years. So we'll get into that stuff a little bit later. But these guys are Columbus firefighters and part of Columbus Fire Department. I'm not allowed to say that, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes. Cool. They know you're here.
Right. No, they do not.
So, but yeah, we've known them for a while, but they've been doing something really cool that we're going to get into. But before we get into that, I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. Tinderbox at Easton, our sponsor for the first cigar, which is the featured cigar, which is the Sensei's Sensational Sarsaparilla by La Zona, which is Eric Espinosa. So yeah, I'd say that 3 times fast. I'm not going to try it. But so this is going to be a cigar that we're going to feature tonight, talk about, smoke, and review. Also, Altadis USA. You'll see the banner behind us. We've got some nice like lighters and cutters as well from them. We've got some more swag stuff that's going to be coming out here later this month and into the new year. They've hooked us up with some great stuff. So thank you, Josh Bentley and Altadis. Got Monte Cristo, H. Upman, Romeo Julieta, Butera, Aging Room, several others, but just fantastic portfolio. And they get accolades from all the major publications every year. In fact, I know Cigar Aficionado just came out with their top 10, and number 2 is the Monte Cristo 1935 anniversary in the number 2 size. I've smoked it in the Toro. We featured it on the podcast. Just a fantastic cigar. So definitely support, Altadis with all their great portfolio. Also, be a cigar company. You won't see it probably on any top 25s nationwide, but it's number 1 in our hearts. It's in your top. So, be a cigar company. In fact, speaking of Espinosa, who makes the Sarsaparilla, they make the BS Silver, and that's going to be all Nicaraguan. That's available in 3 sizes, as the Gold is going to be made by Plasencia, which is also available in 3 sizes, and it's an all Nicaraguan one. Gold's going to be more medium. Silver's going to be more medium full and peppery. Also, quickly here, last but not least, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That's where you guys can contribute. That's who gets the raffle prizes when we get back to doing that in the next couple weeks here. And we're looking forward to rewarding you guys for some support there. $5 tier, $10 tier, $25 tier, whatever you guys want to do. If you want to do a one-time contribution, it's easier to just do the Venmo route, which is at Bourbon and BS. So there's different ways you guys can support the podcast financially and buy us bottles, things like that. If we don't have good friends like Eric and Brad bringing on their own creations here, which we're going to get into for the Whiskies tonight. And then if you are a Patreon member, you get a special, let's see, I can't see this thing that far away, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. So that's where you can get the swag. I'm wearing this one. I'm waiting on proofs right now from buyjack.com on the 3/4 sleeves like I'm wearing right now. Nate's got the podcast shirt on, the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. And we've got some hoodies coming out as well. So going to be new stuff out there. Unfortunately, it was $25 a t-shirt. Now it's going to be $27 a t-shirt just because
everything's gone out.
Yeah, everything's gone out. Shannon's out. No more. Just burn your old jerseys. Cool. But if you guys are on Patreon, you can get a special price. It's about $5. Maybe it might be $7 off. We'll see going forward. But we're trying to get you guys those swag items at the lowest prices we can. All right. So there might be a new St. Patrick's Day flavor, as Shannon said. Stay tuned for another charity shirt. The pink one's coming off, and a green one is coming on, and it's going to be a donation. So that'll be probably $30 or $32, depending on what the price is of that shirt. but then $10 of that will go towards St. Baldrick's Foundation come mid-March, around the time of Smoking Tenant.
Right.
Not, yeah.
Totally different.
Yes.
You
No
are far
relation
from
whatsoever.
a saint.
Yeah.
That being said, all right, that's enough for the advertisement. Anything I missed, Nate? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, cool. All right, so guys,
Drinking.
get to drinking.
That's right.
So these guys have known each other for a long time. How long have you guys known each other?
It's 12 years now. I think it's 12
Yeah.
since 2010. So
Yeah.
Speaking of the mic.
Talking
Yes.
to the mic.
You got to talk into the mic.
Almost 12 years. Yes. Yes.
All right, so almost 12 years. It's mostly good, I'm sure. Some bad, just like any other relationship. But no, you guys, we've known you for a while. You approached us with this project because you guys are cigar lovers and then whiskey enthusiasts as well.
Yes.
So we're going to start with this one, the winter or Christmas rye.
Christmas rye.
All right, so let me kind of say what this says, and you guys can explain what you're doing here, because this is really cool for those that want to get into doing something like this. They want to dip their toes into actually creating something, not necessarily doing all the distilling, not necessarily doing. So you guys kind of sourced a little bit, if you will.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
this
a little
says
bit.
B&E, so Brad and Eric, Christmas rye, aged 8 months. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this, and then you guys kind of, whichever one wants to start,
Sure.
the background.
You wanna go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I got a contact at Middle West Spirits. This is Eric, by the way. Her name's Tammy.
Sure.
So Tammy, shout out to Tammy. Thank you very much. So Tammy hooked it up. We were able to get quite a few cases of their white rye whiskey. This was old whiskey that they had in a warehouse. They couldn't sell it because of its age. So I was able to acquire it from them. And Brad and I, we bought a few of these small white oak barrels that you can get online. Specifically the brand Redhead barrels.
Shout out to Redhead.
If I can plug.
Yeah. Plug all you'd like. Yeah, there are no
Yeah.
rules here.
So yeah, we just kind of came up with this idea that hey, let's age our own whiskey and see where it goes. We'll do a couple different casks, and so we bought like 4 or 5 different sizes of barrels, and yeah,
This one right here is from the largest, which would also be the longest aging process of the barrels.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
Christmas rye.
the 20-liter barrel, that's we aged the longest, obviously, and that's what that came from.
20 liters, is that 53 gallon? Is that, or what is that?
no, that's
These are small guys, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I just
20
want to make sure everyone's on the same page with the actual size of these.
yeah, it
20
takes
liter would be
26
like 4
bottles
gallons.
to
4
fill
gallons.
it.
Yeah.
So
And then
it's-
we also bought a 5-liter and a 3-liter, and then we each got a 2-liter for our own little, use at home. But,
yeah, the 20-liter hurts when you got to fill that.
Yeah,
A lot.
this can get expensive, by the way.
It
So-
never stops pouring.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
4 to 5 gallons. That's a lot of whiskey.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So about 26 bottles went into the 20-liter barrel, and we just kept it there for 8 months. Whereas the 5-liter, the 3-liter, we did some vanilla cask, we did some Caribbean rum cask first, then aged the white rye in it, just for a little bit of a different flavor profile. So it was fun. Yeah,
It was a good time.
yeah,
That's it.
it was fun.
Why'd you guys start this?
So
Well,
funny.
Yeah.
That's a good summary, but let's get
Yeah,
into
yeah.
this a little bit, all right?
Okay. Yeah.
We're
That's
sitting
just-
at the firehouse.
Hey, wouldn't it be cool?
And we
That's how-
were sitting at the firehouse.
figured as much.
There's a bunch of guys there. Am I good on my distance? Am I getting picked up there?
Just as long as you're aiming at the mic. And not
Perfect. Okay. So
It's like a
Sitting
tennis
around-
match. You got to do one of these.
yeah, Wimbledon up here.
That's it.
So there's a bunch of guys at the firehouse that smoke cigars. We all usually sit down in the bay in the evening after dinner. In between runs, we'll have some cigars and just kind of BS down there. And one night, nobody was there but the two of us, and we were talking about aging. And it was like, oh, that'd be cool, man. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that.
Yeah.
Well, I just happened to, talking about a rick house and all the different ways you got to store it. And so I was like, well, I have a rick house. I have a pole barn. essentially, with an upstairs in there. I'm like,
Okay.
well, let's just do that.
Mhm.
So we it went from that to we might actually be able to do this. And then we start calling around, finding different places that we can get barrels from, get bourbon from, all that thing. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And we just kind of jumped into it and said,
Okay.
and then so the very next time we're talking about it, it was, well, shoot, we could do different flavor profiles and we could do all this stuff. And so I'd say we probably took, I don't know, two months just to plan it out, to figure out what we wanted to do,
Okay.
to buy the barrels.
Right.
The hardest thing was sourcing the whiskey because, like I said, that was not going to be fun. We actually went to the store and we were looking at bottles going, this is going to hurt.
Right.
If we got to buy
Yeah.
I think it turned out to be 41 bottles we barreled total.
Right.
Imagine buying
Something like
41 bottles from the store.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll add up.
Yeah.
It'll add
So,
up.
Thanks again, Tammy.
yeah, Tammy came in and really made that happen for us. And then from there, like he was talking about with the casks and things, we kind of had to plan those out. We had to do a lot of Googling and figure out, how do you cask things and what do you do first and time frame. I think you talked to Tammy a little bit when we were there picking things up. How do we do this?
Right.
Getting some pointers.
Right.
But you take like this one right here. I brought a small bottle of the small jar there of the Vanilla Cask. We actually took straight up. We made our own vanilla extract from vanilla bean and vodka.
Okay.
And I should say my wife did because my wife's good at that kind of crap.
A wee-ish.
Yeah. So then I stole all of her vanilla extract. She was a
Perfect.
little pissed about that.
So this wasn't for the.
No, not originally.
Right,
not
right.
originally.
Of course
No. But yeah, we took that and when you season the barrels,
Mhm.
you actually have to put hot water in the barrel, and you put it in there and you just wait for the leaks to stop. And it's all it is. So it could be 10 minutes, it could be 10 days. Put it in there, put it in my basement near the drain so that I didn't end up with water everywhere. And then once it stopped, well, what we did was for the Vanilla Cask, the water that I boiled, I also put a good amount of the vanilla extract in. So then the barrel was seasoned with vanilla extract.
Okay.
And then pulled that out, put the whiskey in. What else? We did a kind of an ode to the Angel's Envy Rye. We not saying that we're anywhere near their level, but
Slightly smaller operation.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Inspiration.
Yeah, inspiration.
Yes.
Inspiration.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Right.
Maybe a little imitation there.
Yeah.
But we took their Caribbean rum idea. So we, instead of putting water in that one, we put almost 2.5, 3 gallons worth of Caribbean rum in the barrel, heated it up. I boiled it and put it in the barrel and let it sit there for 2 months.
Yep.
Okay.
And then so it comes out. I mean, Caribbean rum, it was clear as water. It came out looking as dark as the whiskey.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
It tastes pretty good too.
Good flavor too. Yeah.
By itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
itself.
If you're into rum, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it was pretty
It's good-
impressive.
It was good stuff.
So we did that and then pulled that out, put the whiskey in. We did, what other ones did we do? The large barrel, we just put straight up,
Rye.
White Dog whiskey in there.
Yep.
And
Before we move on, I'm sorry to interrupt. We got Ray out there. He's asking. I can't read it from there. My eyes are that. But how did you decide how much vanilla extract to use in the barrel?
my wife was next to me and I asked her what she thinks. And she looked at me and said, "Do I look like I make bourbon?"
Okay.
And I was like, you know more about extract than I do, and you bake. So what the hell do I put in here? So, and I think she kind of just guided me with it. I didn't even do it. She
Ray,
literally poured it in.
Phone a friend.
So yeah,
Right,
it
yeah.
was,
No.
it was all my wife, you know?
He said, excuse me,
He asked his
dear.
wife, and she
Yeah.
said,
You know, well, I asked my wife and she goes, "Is that my vanilla extract?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." So I promised I'd buy her more vodka and make more for her.
It
But
reminds me of the Key and Peele sketch where he says, and I said, bitch. Do you ever see that one?
No, I haven't seen that one. No.
So you said that? You really said that? He's like, yeah, I said that. And then she walked in the room. He's like, yes, honey, what can I do for you?
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's what I'm thinking of right there.
I shit talk my wife so much when she's not there. And then
most guys do.
yes, and as soon as she walks in, Eric's like, "Do you know what he just said?" No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Shut it.
You talk
But
about
yeah,
how much he loves you.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was literally the vanilla extract was all my wife.
Okay.
So we did that. Like I said, with this one, we just wanted to barrel. First off, it was going to be a nightmare to figure out how to do that much casking, liquid material, whatever you want to call it, first. So we said, let's just do that, which actually worked out really well for us because in the end, we, in a way, we double oaked a barrel as well. So we were able to use that, take it from that, put it into another barrel, and we were able to, quote, double oak it, even though it probably wasn't your traditional bourbon double oaking,
Right.
Because they weren't new anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm also not spending $500 every time I want to do this
Right.
for a new barrel.
Right.
So,
Right.
No, certainly not.
so yeah, we just, got into that stuff. And then we started doing things like when we took the vanilla out, once that was bottled, we took this one, and this is literally just Old Foresters, the 1910 and the 1920. And a big thing out there is to mix them and make the 1915.
When you mix them, are you putting them in a barrel or are you just mixing them here?
You can do both. We barreled it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we barreled it, we also barreled it in the Vanilla Cask barrel.
Yep.
So this has a little bit of you get a little bit of more vanilla
Okay.
hit to it. The 1910 actually has a lot of vanilla flavor,
Yeah.
caramel flavor. So, caramel has a lot of vanilla. So pull from that.
Okay.
Um,
And
So
you're
this has
reusing these
phenomenal
barrels,
flavor.
correct? Or no?
we have a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah. The large one, we haven't yet because I haven't been able to sell my kidney yet to afford to buy the whiskey.
Yeah.
If Eric stops taking vacations, as you
right.
mentioned. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, let's
Stay
get
in-
serious here. Come on.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Start working more overtime.
Right.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey,
I got whiskey to drink.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right.
A lot now.
What's the end game for this whole operation?
All right, so Shannon's asking, what's the end game for the operation? If you call it an operation, is that what we're sure?
I honestly don't know if there is one.
No.
It
to
was
not
just
get divorced because of
Well,
it.
yeah. It was just
Good goal. Good goal.
it was just a cool little experiment we wanted to do. I mean, obviously it stems from the love of whiskey. I've been collecting whiskey now for probably 6-7 years, and so yeah, we were just bullshitting at the firehouse one night and just saying, hey, let's do a little something ourselves, without us having to distill it, because that would be a pain in the ass, but something I probably don't want to get into. I just like buying and drinking it, but yeah, so end game, I don't know, because right now a few of the barrels are in storage, with the storage tablets and all that. So until we figure out what else to do with them, but yeah, you gotta pay money to fill the thing. So it's
So would you
It's
say
not
you're basically like you're just doing the finishing process completely? I mean, that's what you're doing with all this stuff. So
Yeah.
whether it's going to be like your Old Foresters, like you were talking about, you're taking actual like finished product and then you're just actually finishing that, or you're taking the White Dog or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and you're just finishing that product in some sort of a different barreling process.
yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've actually done a few things too. Like you were saying, finishing a
Mhm.
finished product. A couple times we've done some sherry casks. I think you've done some sherry casks. I've done some port wine.
Yeah,
Right.
I tried
so-
that one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
The rum
Funnily
and
enough.
the port.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yep.
guys brought little samples of that.
And then I've actually taken a barrel that had rye whiskey in it,
Mhm.
then put the port wine in there, aged that, bottled that again,
Okay.
which actually gives a nice little flavor. I mean, port wine's a little sweeter and whatnot, and it gives a little bit of a rye kick. It was pretty cool. We both tested it afterwards and we're like, man, that's really impressive how well it takes on the flavor profile of it. But then I took just Ezra Brooks, just a good base bourbon that an everyday drinker.
Yeah.
And we put that in there, and then poured. That's what you had.
I had some of that. In fact, when I was going to get like that backup bottle instead of the Middle West that I picked up, I was looking at the Ezra Brooks 99, and I was like, I can't remember which Ezra Brooks they used. It was just the regular.
It was just the regular because it was a handle.
Yeah.
So that was a really good one. And I've gotten into some goofy stuff. Like I took one where I put, I think it was a bottle of port wine, like half a cup of Luxardo cherry liqueur, and half a cup of chocolate bourbon. And I casked all that together. And then I emptied it completely. And I put Ezra Brooks in there. And it was, I mean, it came out. I had to cut it a little bit more. My ratio was a tad bit off.
First batch was pretty rich.
Yeah, first batch was
rich.
It was sweet.
Too much flavor.
Yeah.
Flavoring, if you will.
Yes. Right. But as soon as I cut it, I don't even think I did a full half and half. And now it's just got a nice little, almost like a chocolate covered cherry flavored port wine bourbon. It was a lot of going on.
So, and how long have you guys been doing this?
8 months. Well,
it's longer than 8
technically
months.
9 months now.
So so that was like when you did this, that was that first creation, correct?
Yes.
The 8 month, the biggest barrel.
And all the barrels went at the same time. And then we were able to pull, this barrel came out early because it was a smaller barrel. Which one's it? The Vanilla Cask.
Okay.
That only takes a 3 liter barrel. Was that 3? That was a
was
5
a
liter
5
barrel.
liter.
5 liter barrel only takes 4 months ish. And you also have to wait. The longer you leave it in there, the more profile you're going to get, but the more you lose to the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those where the first time we pulled a barrel, we put like 4 bottles in, and we got like a bottle and a half out.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well,
You're like, I read about this, but
yeah.
that much? Seriously?
Well, and we
Yeah,
realized
You're like looking for a
Yeah.
leak. You're like, what is going
exactly.
on?
the first place we put his barrels was up in his pole barn, and it was warm. So
So you said 8 months. That would have
we
been.
we lost more.
That was like
Angels.
April. I'm sorry. If you
Yeah,
pulled that,
you know what? I think it
would have
Nope,
been.
this one doesn't say.
It would have been April, right? 8 months would be December.
Yeah,
around
yeah.
then.
You know, I
Yes.
think it was
Yeah.
April because
Okay.
it was still
think
what
you're
we
right.
were looking for was that the hot and cold. We wanted the temperature variation to
Yeah.
push it into the staves and pull it out.
So
So-
mimicking the rick houses.
Yeah, and it's exactly what it was. We were trying to mimic that. Problem is when you mimic with a tiny barrel
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing it with
It goes fast.
55-gallon barrels, they can lose 10, 15 bottles. It's nothing. We lose 10 or 15 bottles and we're halfway out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a kind of a grab a hold of you. So we moved them
Yeah.
down into my basement, left
was
it,
a
which
little
was cool.
cooler.
Yeah.
More climate controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did that. And so I feel like we didn't lose as much anymore.
Yeah. So like my 2 liter bottle or barrel, we each got a 2 liter barrel just for ourselves. And I bought PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon. They make their own White Dog whiskey.
That's
And-
right. You're
and they-
saying
yeah.
that.
And you could just buy it on the shelf. So I bought a couple bottles of it, aged it in my barrel, and it came out okay. Still good, good flavor, but it wasn't as dark in color as I really wanted to. So that's when I had an old bottle of sherry,
Yep.
aged it for a few weeks, lost about half of the bottle to the Angel sherry, poured back in the PBR, aged it for probably about another month, and got some good color and flavor. But doing that, I lost half the bottle. So
So you guys are learning through the process.
absolutely,
Clearly. I mean,
yeah,
doing
it's
this
definitely a
a lot of
learning
lear-
as a
process.
lot of
hobby.
learning.
Do you guys do any research on this? Like do you go online? You do any of that, or you just completely did it kind of based on your
Just wing it.
knowledge? Yeah. Well, yeah.
A lot of it was winging it, but yeah, we did a little bit of research. Like Redhead
Yeah.
Barrels actually has a lot of
That's what I was gonna
information on their website. You
Yeah.
know how long it takes to age something. Typically how to's, things like that. So
Yeah.
Like the big barrel should, in theory, especially the first time, from one thing we read was your first time will be the shortest amount of time, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or something like that. It was a time frame wise where it would change as it goes. But with that, it said roughly 6 months.
Yeah.
We had 6 months and said, So 7 months came and we said, getting better.
Yeah.
We could start seeing some difference.
Right.
So that's when we said, let's give one more month. I think we actually barreled one or bottled one bottle each on 9/11.
Yeah.
Just because
Ceremonial.
background and ceremonial and stuff,
Yeah.
20-year anniversary. It was like, when the hell are we going to bottle this stuff?
Yeah.
And we bottle on 9/11. We both taste it and said,
Needs some more time.
needs more time.
Yeah.
But we kept one bottle, just, like you said, ceremonially.
Hence the Christmas rye.
And there we're at.
We were like,
Yeah.
Christmas, that's it. That's the end.
And you emptied the whole thing.
Yes.
The whole thing. How many
Yeah.
bottles did you get out of it? I'm sorry.
I want to say, I think
Didn't we get
we're
like
at
16 or something? out of it?
14 to 16, but that was also at the 6-month mark when we did the 9/11 bottles. We also refilled another barrel that we had rum cask
Right.
Okay.
to have a Caribbean rum cask double oaked rye.
You writing this down?
Yeah,
You guys, you're gonna have to listen
I don't-
back
yeah.
to how
Yeah,
this
yeah.
went.
you're gonna play this
Like,
back
what's in
right
this
here.
one? I don't remember.
I
Like
have
Jesus.
no idea
Yeah.
what we had. Let's just drink.
If you had to make a label for it, it'd look like a 3-year-old's Christmas list.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did. We actually took note cards, and we would write on each note card and sit it in front of the barrel.
Yeah.
So you got these awesome looking barrels sitting down in my, around my bar. I got bottles of whiskey all over the place, and these friggin' note cards that look like a 7-year-old wrote on them.
Maybe have your
sitting
wife
in front of it.
write on them.
We should.
I feel like she's gonna be the first employee here.
My wife is the catalyst that holds everything together. She is
Just
the one.
in every way.
Yeah, exactly.
All aspects. So what is the next? Well, let's talk about this one. Nate, you've been pretty quiet over there. You've been sipping on that a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
On the nose kind of threw me off a little bit because I definitely got some fruit notes, but there was an acidity to it that really stuck out to me because I haven't had any whiskey that I can think of that had that type of acidity just on the nose. And then, so this is the Christmas rye. So it's the Middle West rye that they had that they never could sell.
Correct.
And then
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So
It's different than what's on the shelves today. She explained it. Something
Yeah.
about the tannins and
But
Well,
this
and
was an
tails.
actual like rye whiskey. It wasn't the
yeah,
white.
it was
yeah,
OYO's old white rye whiskey in their
before it
old
was
OYO bottles.
Middle
correct.
West.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. But it definitely comes across on the palate as a rye. It's got that very strong floral note on the finish. Steve's gonna make fun, kind of like that pine or Christmas wreath kind of floral note
Mhm.
on it. But I think because of the way you guys did the barreling, it's very well rounded. Like it's very smooth.
Yeah.
It's not very sharp. It doesn't bite at all. It's just
Like
There's
a
nothing-
typical rye does.
there's
yeah.
well, there's nothing about it that's just like punching me in the palate. It's just very well rounded and comes across very pleasant.
Yeah, and we should
to hear.
definitely say that when
Can you pass that bottle again?
absolutely when we got
Do
it, the first thing we did right before we're getting ready to barrel it is we were like, well, we got to try some. We got to just take a nip of it.
Yeah.
And we were actually very impressed with how good it tastes straight out of the still, if you will, still just in the White Dog,
Mhm.
straight up
Okay.
rye whiskey.
110 proof.
Yeah, and we actually only we had it tested. It was 109.8 is what we ended up
Yeah,
with now.
That's what this is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It came out of the still at 110, and then after all we lost 0.2.
Okay.
So
How do you get that tested?
So Middle West actually has a machine where
another one?
No, microphone.
Oh, microphone.
yes, distilleries have a little machine where
Yeah.
they actually just pour a little bit in there and
So you
voila,
went back to Middle
it's magic.
West and-
yeah.
Okay.
So we actually gave a bottle back to Tammy
okay. There you go.
for her and her husband to enjoy, and they tested right there, and 109.8. So we lost literally 0.2 proof.
No, I'm asking these questions not only for me, but for everyone else out there.
sure.
When you say that stuff, and people they may not ask on the feed. They might listen to it after the fact, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, we just got to test it. And they're like, well, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, obviously, your answer is a lot greatly based around a connection that you have that you mentioned in the beginning, right?
Correct.
Is Tammy and
Yes.
the connection. That's where you're getting a lot of the stuff, which is great. I mean, that's
Yeah.
And I will encourage people that if you're an enthusiast, obviously not everyone's going to be as cooperative if you're not friends already or whatever, but you can always ask. I mean, in your local distilleries, whatever state you're in, city you're in, you can always ask, you know, you listen to this podcast, what these guys are doing. If you ever wanted to like do this, obviously you could reach out. We'll connect you with these guys. They love talking about it, but also reach out to your local distillers. I mean, we always bring up Watershed and Demikon, who's no longer with them because she's gotten a new position with the state. But I mean, she's the type of person that, from what I know, like if you messaged her on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, she's so enthusiastic about all this stuff that she would absolutely, when she has the time, at least point you in the right direction, if not go above and beyond. I'm not volunteering, and I'm just saying, like any of the, like there are these enthusiasts at most distilleries in your local area. And I think a lot of them would, when they have the time, they might at least be like, well, yeah, let's do this, this, and this. And I mean, obviously, if you want to buy some of their stuff to kind of make it a little bit sweeter or like talk to them about it, it's just developing relationships, really.
Yes.
It's not necessarily reaching out to a stranger and be like, hey, I want this. And they're like, who are you? You know, it's like you gotta like develop that relationship so that you can do that. But I think there are a lot of your local areas that wherever you're at, you're going to be able to have these connections, because that's what all this is about. Obviously, it's the love of doing this stuff. So, you know, I'm not saying it's going to work every time, but I mean, you guys are living proof that that's all it took was working a connection and asking.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the biggest part. Wouldn't it be cool turned into, all right, well, who can we ask? Well, let's ask this person.
Yeah.
Develop all this stuff. Months later, maybe a year or two later, you're drinking some of your own creations.
Yeah.
I love that.
We've also heard stories in the past about other distilleries that, even some of the big distilleries that had barrels sitting in rick houses that didn't fit the flavor profile of products they already had. And so they were just sitting there and they didn't know what to do with it. And, you know, some of them go ahead and like, all right, let's try and create another product. Some of them do something like a one-off, something very unique. But something like this is a great opportunity where they can sit there and go, oh, cool. We don't know what we're going to do with this anyway. Now we can offload it and let them figure it out. Like, cool, we got our money for the barrel. Let you guys enjoy it, do whatever you want with it. It's, you know, not only is it a one-off, you know, that they can't do something with, but then you're getting something from that distillery that's unique. And whether you guys put your own spin on it or not, like, it's something unique, something that's, you know, you.
Sure.
Yeah, it's definitely. Absolutely. It's I would say that a lot of the people that you're going to talk to at these distilleries, they want to talk about it. Yeah. They want, you know, when you go and reach out, and obviously you go to a Middle West, a Watershed, those places, while they're not small, they're probably not as, I'm assuming they're not as big as Angel's Envy and Makers and so on and so forth. Old Forester. So when you go there, these people they're loving it. They just, you ask them questions and they get to spout off all this knowledge that they have. Yeah. Because that's what they're doing. I'm pretty sure that the person that's in the back of the rick house who doesn't want to talk to you is also not the person on social media. That's not the person going to be answering the phone. Right. So
one quick way to do it is go on one of the tours of said distillery or whatever. That's how you develop a lot of the relationships. Yeah. Those typically the ones that I've been on, the tours you were talking about, like tastings and stuff before the podcast, Brad, you were asking, have we gone on those? Every tour guide, you know, they are the tour guide for a reason. And they may just do that for that distillery, is that they're just a tour guide in a sense that that's not just, you're just a tour guide. No, that's all they do. They have a full-time job, but they're so enthusiastic, they will point you in the right direction. You kind of ask them at the end of the, you know, ask them throughout the tour or whatever, but at the end of it, you could always ask, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, right? I listened to a podcast and these two guys did this in Columbus. Is there anyone I could talk to about possibly, you know, breaching the subject? But that distillery tour is a great way to not only learn things about that distillery, about bourbon, whiskey, and everything else, but you could always develop those relationships if you have this interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They've been, like you said, with, obviously he knew the girl, but she was super helpful with everything. Yeah. So I would assume most people have a similar experience.
Yeah.
If they reached out.
Absolutely. Well, what do you guys think of this one, Brad and Eric?
You want to give yours first? See what you think. Tell them what you think about it.
The Christmas rye?
Yeah, the Christmas rye, 8 months.
Yeah. I really enjoy it. It definitely smoothed out over the months. We mentioned that we bottled, you know, on 9/11.
Yeah.
We definitely noticed a big difference between those few months of 9/11 and December. So, Yeah, definitely. I enjoy it. It's got good flavor. Not too hot. Yeah. I think for the first time it, it came out
It was
well.
the white dog basically that went into.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
straight up white whiskey.
It looked like water in the bottle.
Yeah. So I don't know if our viewers, how well they can see, but this is the kind of color it picked up from the barrel after 8 months.
Yep. Really good color and really good flavor.
So again, a review. Maybe this is the OYO Middle West at the time. It was OYO, but it was the White Dog Rye.
Yep.
Correct. Yes.
So it wasn't. They had it. Was it bottled up?
They were cleaning out their old warehouse. They moved warehouses, and excuse me, and she came across some old cases of old White Dog, and she's like, "Here, So we bought it from her, and and
it
came out well. But she said this was better for barreling than what their current stuff on the shelf is. Something to do with the tannins, and that's a little over my head.
This one that you
correct.
guys got is
The
better than
older-
what they're doing right now,
correct.
as far as
Yeah.
like it's a harder process for them to make it what it is.
No, so now you the White Dog whiskey that OYO is still around. Obviously, they've got other things they do with it.
Yeah.
And then the bourbon is now in the bottle that's similar, but it just looked just like that one right there.
Yeah, the Middle West.
It's a Middle West bottle. So you can go to the store right now, and in a Middle West bottle, you can buy white rye whiskey.
Okay.
But somewhere in their refining process and the distilling process, there's, I believe it's called the head, the heart, and the tail of, I'm assuming whatever, I don't know if it's the wheat or what it is. I'm not sure what they use, because we kind of got a really quick version of it when she was standing in the middle of the warehouse, and we got forklifts rolling by.
Right.
Trying not to get hit by a barrel. But she had said that this is different than what you can buy in stores now. This still has the tails, and the tails are what you want for bottling. And I think it's actually under barreling. I'm sorry. It's underneath the label that we've got on here right now. I think it says something about that, bottle, barrel proof, barrel something. So this supposedly still has the tails on it.
Barreling strength.
There you go. Barreling strength.
Yeah. And so Austin Mayberry, who's Bourbon Collective, right? Nate, that's his page.
Yes.
So he's got a Facebook group. He's been in part of the Bourbon and BS community as well. I just want to make sure I had that right. Bourbon Collective, great Facebook community group as well. Don't want to drink those heads. So
she said it.
That's what
you
she
don't
said.
want to drink the heads because she didn't go into it real in depth, but she was like very adamant. She's like, don't ever get something that still has that. And she said this didn't have the heart as well. Those two are taken off. This still has the tails. The Middle West white rye does not have the tails anymore either, apparently. And I say that I don't know what I'm saying. I just know that I'm saying what she said.
Right.
You're trying to relay the information. Obviously, we'd love to get someone like that on the podcast to talk about. Even with you guys, that'd be a great second one as you guys do this another time.
Yeah.
Maybe try to line her up as well to kind of guide that process as you go into your second batch of things. If you're going to continue this hobby, we're getting a lot of questions out there. Ray, Sean, a couple other people. Is this is this a business venture or a hobby for you guys? Sean says, are they trying to expand this side project, or is it mostly just a fun thing to do?
Right now, just a hobby.
Hobby. We gave a whole bunch of bottles away to some friends. There's 6 of us that I think you've probably met most of them at the show at some point. But so we go we go over there, play poker, drink whiskey, smoke cigars, things like that. And we gave each of them a bottle for Christmas.
Nice.
And he gave a bottle away. We gave you guys a bottle. We gave a bottle to her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's fun. And we were able to get such a good amount that we were able to actually do something worthwhile this time. So I'm sure we're going to continue to do something with it, but I don't ever see it being in anytime soon, any kind of business.
Okay. When you guys retire, maybe.
Maybe
honestly,
retire.
Yeah.
I mean, I would absolutely, that would be great. Something to do after retirement.
Well, it's something you guys know a little bit more, and who knows where the project goes, the hobby goes. You might expand it a little bit. Obviously, a pole barn's not a true rick house by any means, as you've learned through this. But I think you're going to learn a lot, and it's funny that if you guys keep going on, distillery tours, if you keep making more connections, you keep learning more and more, shoot, a couple years down the road, 5 years down the road, you're still doing this as a hobby while you guys are, being firefighters, obviously. Who knows what you're going to learn?
Well, and also, like, they've been making this stuff and letting friends who like whiskey try this stuff. Maybe down the road, like the next time you guys decide you want to do another project like this, like some of your friends chip in so that way you guys don't have as much overhead cost initially. Like, you get a few more buddies to actually chip in.
That's a damn good idea.
Yeah.
So that way it's not all
Brian, John, if you guys are listening,
That's right.
Chris,
Pay up, suckers.
hey, you
Sorry,
owe
go
us some
fund
money.
No, but I mean, it could be something you do. Maybe you do an annual Christmas. But you start.
Yeah.
All right, this is 8 months. All right, so might be behind the gun a little bit right now, but it's like that could be a project where it's like, hey, we're going to do 12 months next year.
Yeah.
We're going to age it this much longer. We might get a different white dog, if you will, or white whiskey, to work with.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah,
going to
we've
say,
talked about that too, trying a different brand, trying Watershed,
Yeah.
trying High Bank.
Maybe an actual whiskey, not rye, but an actual white dog whiskey to make, well, not bourbon, but bourbon
Ish.
obviously has bourbon-ish.
Bourbon-ish.
well, I just think it'd be something.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. I mean, this is basically like a little bit of a science experiment. Now you turn it into, all right, so we're going to, if you could get your hands on another, what was the biggest barrel you did? 20?
20
liter, yeah.
20 liter. So you do the 20 liter or whatever, and you do one with, OYO or now Middle West or something like that. Or then you do all the Columbus ones. If you get your hands on another one, like, hey, we're going to put it in at the same time, same product. We're going to, same barrel, if you will, if you can, and do different distilleries. And you start learning like what the differences will be as you go through it. I mean, that's part of, I think, the fun. I was going to comment on this, like when I was asking Nate what you guys thought of this. And we had a comment where it's like, Nate's face didn't really match what he was saying. I'll be, blunt with this is that, with OYO, one of the distilleries here, I like what they've done with Middle West. I like, we did the dark pumpernickel rye on here.
Good.
One of my favorites.
Such a unique one.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about Watershed because we do like them here in town. High Bank the same way. What they're doing as they've matured as a distillery, especially in the whiskey world, in my opinion, is they've grown. Their products have gotten better and better. We've talked about a lot of the outside of Kentucky and Tennessee, a lot of these, like the smaller distilleries when they're using smaller barrels to either finish or when they're using like, the pressurized stuff that goes on. It's like to the point where there's like comment on Nate's review, if you will, or the initial reaction. I wasn't a huge fan of the OYO rye or some of their products. As they've grown, I've grown with them, like, in some of this stuff. Like I picked up this Middle West. What was that called? I forget
That's
name.
the weeded
Michelin.
weeded.
Yep.
So it's like this first time I had that, we were sipping on it before the podcast. I'm continually impressed with what is considered a smaller distillery or a local distillery.
Young distillery. Yep.
They're getting better and better. So I'm not like knocking when they were OYO whiskeys, but I remember being at some events where it's like, OYO whiskey, a bourbon is going to be the sponsor of it. You get samples of it and you take a sip of it. And before we did the podcast, before all this stuff, and I'm sipping on it, I'm like, it's not what I'm used to. You know what I mean? Like it's just, so
It's really good.
to that point, you know what I mean? It's like to Ray, it's not saying that OYO is bad or anything like that, but what you guys did with this, I do think that you get a little bit of the younger type of, like you were talking about acidity, Nate, you're talking about some of those. It's not a bad thing. I just think that it's enjoyable. And I agree that it's a little bit better balanced after, finishing like you guys did.
Yeah.
I think it was a nice touch to it. You get a little bit of that spice in a rye, you get a little bit of the food flavors like that.
Did you ever have any of OYO's White Dog? Because there was someone in the shop that actually had a bottle of the White Dog and actually said on the label, like, aged in a barrel for less than a day, and they didn't like it, and they gave it to me. So I didn't know if you had any.
I hadn't.
Okay. But
you got to think about it. That would be why it tastes a little bit younger. I mean, for what you guys are doing here, I mean, I actually enjoy it. It's not super hot. It's got a little bit of punch to it. It's got a little, like you were saying, Nate, like those rye characteristics. You say floral. I think it's a little lighter, but it's also got that spice finish in a sense.
It also only spent 8 months in a barrel.
That's my
whereas
point.
a lot of the ryes that we come across are a minimum of a 2-year product.
Right.
Right.
I think the only rye we've had that was not, or that was less than 2 years, was that O from Yellowstone, where they did a 19-month, but it was also a smaller barrel that they were doing it in.
Right.
So that it does age a little bit faster.
I think this is a little punchy. You know what I mean? It's got a little bit of that, like
it's got some heat.
Yeah, it's got some heat, a little, like not tang, but it's got a little bit of that. It's little. Yeah, I mean, it's for 8 months. Like this first project. I mean, for anyone out there listening, if we all took a sip of this and we're like, "Holy shit, this is like the best rye I've ever had," then you guys need to write down what you did.
Yeah.
Going into this, I think you guys weren't expecting this to like compete with some of the biggest ryes out there on the market that are like winning awards or stuff like that.
Not at all.
So like to the point of like about like Nate's comments or like what I'm saying. I mean, it's we're just having fun. You guys are having fun with it. We're having fun with it. I think this is a really cool project and a cool bottle. I enjoy the flavor of it.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
know what I mean? This is really kind of, it's enjoyable.
And keep in mind, that's 8 months in a 20-liter barrel,
Right?
Not a full-size barrel. So
it's quicker.
Do the math. I don't know, but the equivalent would be, I don't know, a couple years in a because obviously smaller the barrel.
A couple years ago when we had the whiskey and rye from Still Austin on, so they're in Texas, and because their temperature is much more broad than what we get here in Ohio, their product was a 2-year whiskey, but it tasted like something that was 4 to 6 years, and it's because they have such extreme temperatures on both ends.
Right.
It's going in and out of the barrel staves more often than something that's aged in the Midwest. It's just like with Scotch. Why is Scotch aged for so long in barrels? Because their climate pretty much stays fairly temperate most of the year, so it takes more years in order to get more characteristic and more flavor in that whiskey.
Definitely. Yep.
Now, do they tend to a place like that? You're saying it takes a lot longer. Do they lose more because they have to keep it in there, or does that smaller fluctuation tend to lose less?
The smaller fluctuation, they're going to lose less, but they have to keep it in there longer.
Yeah.
So it kind of balances out in the long run. I mean, you guys were talking about how much you guys lost in such a short period of time. You're also using smaller barrels.
Correct.
If you were using the giant 53-gallon barrels, then you wouldn't have lost quite as much, probably by volume.
Yeah.
But using the smaller ones, you're going to lose a little bit more.
Yep.
But using those smaller ones, you can do an 8-month, and it's going to age, more like maybe a 3 or 4 year.
Yeah.
Because it's the smaller barrel. There's less juice in there. There's more contact.
Well, and there's something, right? So we've got some comments here. Dave Gordon out there, he says, stay away from rapid, aka pressure age stuff. You get lots of oak, but little character. Obviously, you guys are doing a little differently. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, all passive for us.
Right.
It was just a very passive movement. Whatever the temperature was, there was no influence aside from taking it from my barn to my basement.
Right. Yeah, I just think that it's something that we have had some on here that do the either pressurized or they do the smaller barrels to accelerate it. I don't think you're going to compete necessarily sometimes with some of the more traditional, the 53-gallon, the rick houses, stuff like that. I mean, I think it is a different type of product.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've had some that I've really enjoyed. I've had some that I've like taken a sip of. I'm like, what is that? You know what I mean? This is one that I'm enjoying, not just because you guys are here. It's like, I talked with, Brian at the shop after you guys weren't there. We were sipping on the one you did with the Ezra Brooks, obviously, and we did the other one with the port. We did the other one you left us, the double oak, and we've done, I gave him a sample of this and stuff, and it's like, it's one of those like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's kind of that response. And again, with what you guys are doing, if you can get it from a whiskey drinker, like that's pretty good. If you're like, hey, what do you think of this to like a bourbon enthusiast, like, someone like, that's just got hundreds of bottles, they've drank everything, or like you just blind taste them and like, what is that? Because they're not really expecting what you're handing them. You're not saying like, hey, this is a 10-year aged, whatever product. I mean, these are different types of drinks, and I think this is actually enjoyable. In fact, can I have a little bit more here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless I do want to go into some of these comments here too. So Austin, when you're talking about the tails, the heads, and stuff like that, right? So he said, because again, he's very knowledgeable. He says probably okay in small volumes with the heads.
Okay.
But the heads contain acetones and methanol, toxic to the liver, and can cause pretty serious health problems. So this is something that I would imagine a trial and error type of a thing that, you know, from the farming to the distilleries over the years that they probably figured out. You're like, I don't feel so good.
Right.
Like, what'd you, you know, and they kind of, I would guess process of elimination, but of course, Ray says don't mention health on here. I mean, I think we should learn a little bit about that. He just
don't drink acetone. That's a good.
Either he doesn't want to talk about health or he doesn't want us to go down a tangent of health and all that stuff with what we've been talking about. I don't know.
So one thing that I have found with this, and I don't know since you've had the bottle, if you've had it over ice at all, if you've put it on the rocks, or if it's always been just neat. One thing that I was really impressed with was this. You hear about people say, oh, well, if you have it, you put a little couple drops of water in, or you put it over ice and it changes the flavor. And to be honest with you, with a lot of bourbons and whiskeys and things, I guess I tasted a little. I taste the proof down, that kind of thing. This changes. I was so impressed with like ice, a tiny, I mean, just a tiny bit of water, and it's just for me that I've noticed. I'm like, wow, I tasted a huge difference in the flavor profile just adding that. Where I don't taste that a lot of times.
Fixing the ratio. I'm not getting crazy.
And
we need to get an eyedropper out here. A water dropper. Seriously. I'm like, oh, I got this. And it's just like, and I poured half a glass.
Right. And I don't say that to give us props on that as much as Middle West and OYO. Their recipe, their juice, their profiles. I'm assuming that's got to be the only thing that did. All we did was age it. Right. I can't imagine that us aging the barrel or aging it in the barrel has done something that magically makes adding rocks to it change the flavor. Right. I just was impressed. I felt like I tasted a difference.
Well, it's gonna. It all starts with the base, with that base white dog and what goes into it.
Yeah.
The last time that we had Demikon, we also had Aaron, who's now the head distiller at Watershed, and they were talking. You know, he's only been there now for less than a year, so the stuff that he's actually been doing with their mash bills is different than what they've done in the past. So all they've actually had to sample so far is what's come off the still. And they've already noticed a huge difference just in what he's doing as it's coming off the still versus stuff that they've done in the past. So they're super excited, 3-4 years from now to actually see what comes out of the barrel, since they like just the white dog so much with the change.
Yeah. Well, I want to throw a comment up there too. Let me see if I can find it here.
I want to sip another one of these bottles that we have.
Get there. We'll get
there.
Oh,
for sure.
So Dave Gordon says the more fluctuations in temp. So we're talking about the actual process, and we got some knowledgeable people out there. No, that's not it. So the more fluctuations in temperature, the more faster it ages. Probably just the top floor of the Rick House produces the bottom shelf bourbons, according to Dave Gordon. This is not this is part of the community, which I love about this type of a show, is that we can get these kind of things out there, and we're not looking for arguments or anything like that. It's more just discussion. So I believe him here. Longer aged bourbons are on the bottom floors with more consistent temps, resulting in smoother taste. So again, like controlling that to a point, right?
Right.
I think you're going to find that.
So it was a good move that we took it to the basement.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Sean Anderson had commented earlier, and Sean's a good old boy from Tennessee. He actually said that a smaller barrel, it'll age just fine in a cellar.
Yeah.
All right. So to your point, real quick on adding the dash of water or whatever I actually put in there, again, maybe a couple drops would have been better. It takes away a little bit of that acidity. It takes away a little bit of that, slight harshness that might be on that. Like to what you're saying, Brad, it smooths it out a little bit. Not waters it down, but it actually takes away a little bit of the heat. You taste a little bit more of the flavor, I think, of the barrel and what you've got. You
get more oak and
more oak. Structure out of it. It's more of like a subtle, like smoothed out experience, of smoothed out that finish of the spice that I like in a rye a lot of times. Yep. Yeah.
And I'm assuming, well, for me, a lot of times putting the ice in there, obviously right off the bat, you're not getting a huge difference because it's not watered down yet. And there's no, you're just getting the cold from it. So as you drink it, that one glass, as the ice melts a little bit, the drink just changes depending on how much you put in there and how fast you drank it. Yeah. It was kind of nice to get that difference throughout just that one glass.
Yeah. So I'll encourage you, Nate, if you're waiting to move on to the next one. I was going to say we might do that or
this one right here.
Pour a pour of that here as we are rounding out here. We get to the cigar, we do all this, but I mean, I want to see what you have to say about that experience, because I got to tell you, it takes it up a notch as far as not heat or anything, but.
Don't throw the bottle at it, please.
Pow. Bam.
There's a lot of shows. There's a beverage here. There's a beverage. There, I gave you a Big Lebowski reference. You did. All right. Like I don't want to hear about it anymore.
I guess I'm proud.
No more.
It's a drinking game. I bet. What are we doing here? So I want to talk about the cigar. I'll throw up one more question here. Ray asks, could you do this with already bottled whiskey by putting it back in a barrel? I'll answer briefly, and you guys can take it from there. Yes, because they did that with like that Ezra Brooks with was that the port?
Yeah.
Yes, the port, and I did the port, this, and what was the other one I did?
Not the rum. Or yeah.
I think I did a rum as well. So yes, we've done malt and a sherry as well.
So you can, Ray, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're taking a whatever it might be considered a finished product, but then you add, again, when I say finish, a product, and then now you're taking that and finishing it.
Right.
Right. I mean,
correct.
All right, Nate.
Yeah. Finishing it more.
For the camera, so Ray doesn't call you out. What do you got?
Holy shit.
What did I say?
Adding that little bit of water to it, it actually brings out more of that rye spice.
Right. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Is that an echo?
Well played, Steve.
I didn't do anything. These guys did all the work.
Yeah.
To answer that last question, about 2-3 years ago, I took about 6 or 7 of my bourbons that were all 100+ proof.
Yeah.
And I took about 200 milliliters of each, aged it in one of my little barrels, just to have a high proof mixture, if you will.
Suicide, that's what we called that.
Suicide, or
Pizza Hut.
Yes.
Or people call
suicide
them
soda.
infinity bottles, or but yeah, it came out really well. Yes, it had some heat to it, but the flavors were amazing. And
we used to have an infinity bottle in the garage, and then we kept finishing bottles during the podcast.
Right.
And then we finished the infinity bottle.
Exactly.
God damn it.
So there was no
Is
more
that bottle
whiskey.
still around, or?
God,
I hope so. Maybe.
No, it's inside somewhere. We took it inside somewhere.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it didn't end up in the trash.
That
was a gift.
Gosh, I hope not. Yeah, because it had a company label on it too.
That's awkward.
I think Jonathan Herring gave that to us.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Had the punch logo.
All right, stop being specific.
If Jonathan's watching, yes, we still have it. It's here. I promise.
Oh, there it is. You guys are all looking at it.
God damn it, Steve.
All right, let's get to the cigar here and try to complete part 1. I feel like this is going to be an interesting part 2 here. So we are smoking tonight. This is the, as I said, Sensei's Sensational Sarsaparilla. This is made by Espinosa, La Zona, right, at their factory. I believe it was about 2014 that Cigar Dojo got in cigar media type of a organization. I can look it up just instead of being vague here. I had it pulled up here. Let's see. So the Cigar Media Association, literally that's what it's called. So I was on point there. Is the 2014 Media Brand of the Year. And they had done, Cigar Dojo has done, if you guys know the Underground Dogma, that was actually one of their offshoots that they were involved in with Drew Estate. That was something that they've done with other things that, like Moya Ruiz, they did Nunchuck. So this is something that they did in celebration for that. So Eric, the master sensei of Cigar Dojo, good friend of Eric Espinosa. So they did this project, and it was a limited run through Cigar Dojo itself. And then just, I think it was last year that this was actually re-released. And it's interesting. Can you hand me that box there? So the first time it did not come out in boxes to my knowledge, but it's kind of cool. It is. It's very kind of a basic wood grain.
Looking.
Yeah. So sorry we're so far back here tonight because we have the 4 people on and we don't have multi-camera angles. But very much cool, almost like a carnival.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Would you say look to it?
Kind of like an old Western poster.
Yeah. So you aren't going to be able to see that.
Here,
I
can
can't
hold
see
up
it.
closer to the-
Let's see here. Oh, it's perfect.
Can you get it?
I mean, from far away.
Yeah.
I'll hand it to you. So, anyways, this is a San Andreas Maduro wrapper, and the rest is undisclosed. Yeah, that's cool. There you go.
Has kind of an old school Ouija board feel.
It
The
might
big
be.
letter small. It's pretty
Might be a
cool
Ouija
looking.
board.
I like that.
All right. Well, if we drink enough, maybe we'll call some spirits tonight. Let me get that back here because it's kind of a cool thing. What it says on there. But so I'll just along that border, right, and what it says. But I mean, so Sensei Sensational, Sarsaparilla, La Zona, an extraordinary smoking experience with an unforgettable evolution of flavor, a savory cocktail concoction developed at the one and only La Zona factory in Nicaragua, and then suggested pairings: steak, port wine, French fries, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And then it's got dojoverse.com. So check them out as well. Cigardojo.com. Check them out as well. Great organizations, great websites. They do some great reviews as well. When you're looking up cigars, they'll pop up on there. They do a lot of reviews and everything. What?
I just noted because I've had this cigar before. The back of the band actually has the CD for Cigar Dojo.
Yeah.
On the band.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
is that what that's for? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that slide it over the middle there again. I don't know. Whatever.
I got you.
They can't
Thanks,
see it with
thanks.
the banner up anyway, so it's all right. Just
No one's listening. I always like that from Major League. No one's listening anyways.
You can't say that, and who cares? No one's listening.
It's like when they do the audience, they're like, hey, all right.
Where to go, boy?
This is cool. It comes in, I think, the one size. It's a Bellicoso. It's probably 5.5. I'd have to look at it, but it's a nice cigar in a sense that it's a little different. What do you guys think of this cigar? Because again, the rest of it's undisclosed. They don't really talk about it a whole lot. Obviously, I'm sure if we had Eric on here, or either Eric Espinosa or Eric from Cigar Dojo.
Mhm.
Not you.
Right.
Well, let's hear from our Eric right now. What do you think, our Eric here in the garage?
You're right. It's just a nice, straightforward cigar. Nothing crazy about it. Nothing, no wild flavors. Not too strong. Not too mild. I like that. Yeah, I usually gravitate towards a darker cigar. So, yeah, it's nice and smooth. Decent draw. I like it.
I think it is a little bit like that San Andreas, like kind of like that meaty, like that bolder flavor overall, but it's nicely balanced with whatever the filler is.
Right.
It's like medium body, but there's a lot of flavor to
Yeah.
it because of that San Andreas.
Yeah. Brad, what do you think?
So I like the cigar a lot.
Have you had it?
No, not before.
Okay.
Just
Eric, have you had it? Okay.
No.
No. I like it a lot. Like he said, it's very smooth. Nothing overpowering on any note. So, just kind of a nice, well-rounded cigar, really. I'm definitely not to the caliber as the rest of you or Eric with it. I like to smoke cigars, but I kind of go off of you and people at the shop a lot when I go in to buy things to try stuff. I mean, I probably every other time I come in there, it's just pick something else for me, Steve.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think, just so I can
But
try
you know what
something
you
different.
like, what you
Other
don't
opinions.
like, you
Yeah.
know. If
There's
I
a few
suggest
things.
something that you may have had, and you're like, or I actually liked that before. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know what I don't like, but to be honest with you, there's not a lot that I don't like, I guess. I've never really had a cigar and I'm like, whoa, no way.
No
I don't,
thanks.
yeah. But that probably also goes to the fact that anytime I venture outside of the stuff that I know that I like, it's, hey, Brian, hey, Steve, what do you think? Pick one for me.
Yeah.
You're typically not picking, so you're not like, oh, I'm going to get Brad this time.
Here's a nice piece of shit.
Try this jack off
This one's not
thing.
selling. You want a
Yeah.
box? Cool.
How
Give you a
about this
deal.
one? So, I'm assuming that's probably the reason why I don't have a lot of cigars that I don't like.
Yeah.
Because you guys typically don't pick cigars that you don't like. You're not giving me crappy cigars.
Correct.
So, and same thing with, with Eric, if he's picking something or, grab something that he's got in his humidor at work, because of course I'm lazy
Yeah.
and I forget to bring one, and he's like, I got one, and it's usually an eye roll, but it's always a good one. So
I do want to say here, so Julie, who's an old neighbor of mine on San Andreas Place here in the neighborhood, actually, shout out to San Andreas. So yeah, I remember when I first started the podcast, side note, and like we had some reps coming over, to be on the podcast. Like Miguel was one of them, I remember. He's like, seriously, San Andreas Place?
Because I think we were smoking the Buckeye Lane. Which
Yeah,
has San
something like
Andreas.
that. He's like, you serious? Is that why you moved there? I'm like, no. But I
happy
did like
coincidence.
Yeah.
that. I like that. And then Ray Chester says, does it have sarsaparilla in it? Not to our knowledge. It is undisclosed. So we don't know. I haven't had sarsaparilla in a long time, if ever, but I don't think so. I think this was just a name. I don't think it was something necessarily based on the flavor profile. Nate, what do you think of this cigar here? And you have smoked this before?
Once before.
Once before, second time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
To me, it actually comes across a little bit similar to the Nica Rustica that we had recently, because there's a ton of smoke that comes off this cigar.
Wow.
Even when it's just sitting in the ashtray, like it just billows smoke. Typically with the Bellicoso, I do have to cut down a little bit because it has that point to it. This one, like even with the way I cut down, I may have cut down too much because it draws so effortlessly.
Yeah.
Like it's constructed so well that you don't need to cut that much of the tip off in order to be able to pull through the cigar. But the one thing,
That's right, Sean. Just the tip.
Just
Thank you.
the tip.
yeah, we got a bunch of 5-year-olds.
Never gets old.
He's just trying to contribute. He's trying to be a part of it.
But
We
no,
all had a good time.
the one thing that, like, when I say that it reminds me of the Nica Rustica, like it just has that very hearty taste to it. I disagree a little bit with what you said. I don't think it's necessarily a smooth cigar because of how hearty the flavor hits the palate. Like it comes across like that Nica Rustica with all that Nicaraguan tobacco. Like it's got a little roughness to it, but I think that's the point to this cigar. Same thing with the Nica Rustica. That's the point of that cigar, is that kind of old school, more traditional Nicaraguan cigar. But on this one, I get a lot of woody flavors to this cigar. Like there's a lot of wood flavor notes with this, which is one reason why they probably say it goes really well with, steaks, whiskeys, and stuff like that. Those flavors tend to complement each other.
Yeah, this is a cigar. I think that I've smoked a few, and smoking it on its own, like in the middle of the day, by itself, it's good. It kind of dries me out a little bit, but I've had that with some San Andreas, with some Nicaraguan tobacco, stuff like that. It's just it's very good, but I need to drink some water. I need to have a drink with it, like whether it be water or something else. But on my palate, it'll kind of give me that dried out finish after I'm about halfway through it. Mm-hmm. You say smooth, Brad. You say a little different, Nate. I think that it's nicely balanced in what it's delivering with I agree with the woody notes. I think there's something there as far as kind of a not cedar. It's almost like oaky in a sense, right? So it's like that oaky type of a flavor note, if you will, an essence to it. I do think that this is a great pairing cigar. I think it's really fun when they did these boxes, or at the bottom of that when you open it up, the lid pairs great with this. Spot on. This, I think it does. It pairs really well, like a steak dinner. I think it pairs well with they say Kentucky bourbon because that's all the rage. Maybe they think that it's a rye would be nice with it, like we're drinking tonight. What you guys did with this, I think there is. And we'll get to the pairing ratings here soon. But this is a nice cigar. You brought up Nica Rustica, another Drew Estate cigar, which I don't normally care for on its own, is the KFC, the Kentucky Fire Care.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because it's like almost like English pipe tobacco. So just smoking that cigar on its own. But I still remember the first time I smoked that cigar after I had a steak dinner. That was fantastic because it does give you that campfire type of thing. This is the same thing. This is a cigar that if I had my, humidor and say there was a couple of these in there, or like say the four of us were having steak dinner, went out, you know, you had a couple cocktails, whatever, before dinner. Maybe we get a bottle of like, you know, a cab or whatever with the steak dinner. You have the typical like asparagus, some garlic mashed potatoes, or a baked potato, or for Nate's sake, green beans. Thank you, Sean. But and then at the end of it, you know, maybe you have like a coffee, and then hey, let's go have a cigar, and you either pour, you know, a rye whiskey or a whiskey, and we're sitting around. This is a cigar I'd love to light up at the end of the night after all of that. I think this would really go well with what's on, like just like sitting on your palate. You know what I mean? This is like, it's rich. It's got that oakiness. It's got that, you know, overall just there's a flavor there that I think complements kind of sitting around a fire after a steak dinner with, you know, nice bold whiskey
or even a red wine. Like
yeah, well,
like
a cab.
cab.
Yeah. Well, that was with dinner.
Like
we already finished the bottle.
Okay, yeah.
We can open up another bottle.
Yeah.
You want to go, Sean? We grab a bottle of
Diversity.
cab from
Yeah.
inside.
We gotta.
Oh, I've
keep
done
it
that.
moving.
Wife
Part
and I
two,
killed a
all
bottle
right.
of
You know,
cab
thanks for bringing the
during steak
whiskeys. We're
dinner.
moving on to
another.
wine tonight. You know,
Yeah. Done.
Might as well.
we're gonna lay back. Let's have a bottle of wine before we go on to the other whiskeys. But no, I think it was a cool project. Again, I'll say this about this on its own, it's not my favorite, but in an experience like this with a whiskey, or with the pairing of a lot of things they mentioned on the inside of that lid of the box, I think that's a spot on. Kind of, yes, it's a fun, you know, banner looking thing, but I think there's something to it. There's something to it. Trying to read some of these comments here. Yeah, Ray says, I love the KFC. Just got a text. You should add some cab. So.
Should have brought the pork cask.
That's right.
Son of a bitch.
All right, so this is the part of part one, guys. Thank you for tuning in so far on this. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having
having
us.
us.
Long haul. You guys need to take off. You guys working tomorrow?
No, not at all.
Okay,
We're off
That's
tomorrow.
good for
Yeah.
you and the Columbus area.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. At least downtown. Yep.
Even if I wasn't drinking, it probably is good for somebody that I'm not at work.
Right.
So, yeah. There's always.
All right,
He's
so
coming. I'll take myself.
cancel it.
Yeah, I'll take myself to the
I'm
hospital.
gonna Uber.
Yeah.
Put the fire out.
5-star rating Uber driver. I feel like they got me. They got me covered until I get there. So this is the time. I don't know if you guys listen all the time. You know, I know you've listened to the podcast. You've been a part of the community. We do a rating. So we're gonna rate, and we stuck with this for a reason. That first one, the B&E, which I still think breaking and entering, like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not.
Says the guy that is part of a cigar called the BS.
Right. There's no crimes being committed there. But no, B&E Christmas Rye, aged 8 months. We've talked about it in depth tonight. So we do a out of 10, 10 being the best, rating on the whiskey. Okay. And then also the cigar. And then also the pairing of the sarsaparilla with your guys' 8-month Christmas Rye.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'm not starting.
They got to go
I don't know.
first.
Oh, Nate
That sounds
will
like
do.
Eric's going first.
I feel kind of weird rating my own whiskey.
That's
It's a
actually
10,
what we get
a
all the time
10.
from
Yeah.
cigar
We get a lot-
owners, cigar
exactly.
reps,
Right.
from whiskey owners, whiskey, like everyone. They're like, oh, I feel like I'm being
Well,
biased. Be biased.
It's funny. The reps tend to be like, they tend to be overzealous when rating theirs, and they always want to rate it really, really high.
Yeah.
But then when we have like the owner of the company or something, they're much more critical. Like when Ricky Rodriguez, who's the blender and head of CAO,
Yeah.
he's very critical of his cigars.
Well, it's because like when you're working for the company, you are hoping the boss
Kissing ass.
isn't listening.
You're right. Yeah.
But there's different people. And then if you're the owner, the blender, or the creator of, like you guys are, right away, like be
Yeah.
honest, you know,
Yeah.
be you can glorify it if you think this is the best thing you guys have done, you know, or if you think you can do better.
Sure.
That's kind of how I look at it when you guys are in those seats right there. But go ahead, Eric.
Okay, let's start with the whiskey. You know, being our first time, I think it actually came out pretty well. You know, we all discussed the flavor profile and everything like that. So I'm going to give it a humble 7 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, I'm not too high. There's always room for improvement. So maybe the next batch we'll do a couple things differently. I don't know. We'll see.
8 and 9 next.
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Okay. What about the cigar?
Cigar, I'm gonna give a 6 out of 10. You know, it's good. Not my favorite, but yeah, it's good. It's all right. And so then the pairing, it does pair well with the rye, like you said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's give it another 7 out of 10 as far as the rating.
Okay.
Yep.
So we go 7, 6, 7.
Yep.
Okay. Brad.
So I'm actually going to go 8s across the board. And the reason, one, obviously, like we talked about with the bourbon or with the rye, is first time through. I'm extremely happy with how putting in that extra 2 months since we had bottled the A1, how much flavor we got from it. I love the way that you can drink it straight, put it over ice.
Yeah.
You get a lot of changes with that. So I'm very happy with that. And even to the fact that, like I said, you enjoy it when it's in its raw form. When it was just straight
before you
straight
guys
out of the
touched it.
still.
Yeah.
Before we touched it, I was just impressed with the flavor it had. It had some heat. It was hot, but it was amazing how much flavor came from it.
Okay.
You really pull that sweetness that kind of comes from a rye. Sometimes you can actually taste it this time. And so the 8 with that, obviously, again, I'm a little bit biased from it. Like Eric said, there's always some room for improvement. And I'm going 8 on the cigar because, like I said, my palate is not as refined as some, and it was enjoyable the whole time. I think one of the few cigars I have had that Eric gave me that I didn't like was a Gurkha. And I can't remember which one because I've had Gurkha since.
A lot of different Gurkhas.
Yeah, I've had a Gurkha since
probably
a
the
couple
Ghost.
different ones. No, I've had a Ghost
Okay.
since. I like that one.
Yeah, that'd be up your alley.
But I remembered specifically the very first Gurkha I ever had. I was like, whoa. It caught me off guard. We were at the firehouse, so who knows what reason. But that being said, I know for a fact that there are some harsh cigars out, and this is with an unrefined palate. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
So some people are probably going to give it a little lower because they know more of what they're talking about. It's not the greatest cigar I've ever had, but I'm very much enjoying it. And then together, like we had said, it just pairs so well. It does it. This brings out flavors in that and vice versa. So I'm going 8s across the board with it.
Okay.
Top of that.
As Sean says.
See what I mean about
Put it
cutting
up
them
on
off?
the screen there, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, my nickname from episode 129 is the Russian
very,
Judge.
very specific.
So,
Okay.
well, remember, I have the spreadsheet with all that information from. Yeah.
Did I call you that? Was that
No, that was one of our listeners called me that
nice?
in the comments. So,
We got some competition here. Moscow.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Moscow.
and that's one of the reasons why I write my ratings down before anyone else does their ratings.
So what do we got over there?
So
Drago.
on this whiskey, I'm an 8 on the whiskey. I really enjoy this. If you didn't have that label on the bottle, I would, and if you told me this was a rye, like I would pin this at like a 2 to 3 year rye.
Okay.
Not necessarily more than that because it does have that very light color to it. But then again, I've had some 10-year ryes that were that exact same color. They were just aged somewhere else instead of in Ohio.
Mhm.
So this being 8 months, being a smaller barrel kind of makes sense why I would kind of pin in that 2 to 3 year.
Yeah.
Because it does age a little quicker. But it doesn't have that heat, that burn like maybe a White Dog or something that hasn't been aged properly would have. Even being 8 months, it wasn't so floral just from that, like you expect just from the rye grain. That rye grain has a lot of floral notes to it. But this tasted like a lot of the ryes that I've had that, weren't, 4 to 8 year ryes. This just tasted like, a typical 2 to 3 year rye on the shelf.
Nice.
And it was very enjoyable, very well rounded. I do agree with Steve, like adding that little bit of water brought out a lot more of those floral characteristics that we tend to get in some of those longer aged ryes. For the cigar, I'm a 7 on the cigar. It's enjoyable. I like just pretty much everything else Eric does for the most part a little bit more, but it's still a very enjoyable cigar. It's not a bad cigar.
Yeah.
not necessarily, from Espinosa's line, the next Espinosa I'm going to go to when I'm back in the shop. It's different. If I'm looking for a cigar that's got more of those oaky and woody characteristics, this is something that I would pick up. If we maybe had a customer come into the shop that was looking for the KFC and we didn't have the KFC, I think this is something that they could still enjoy because of those woody characteristics. Even though it's not quite as smoky and woody as the KFC, it still has some of those same characteristics. For the pairing, I'm an 8 on the pairing because smoking this cigar and then going to the whiskey, it adds the sweetness to the whiskey that I was not getting before. And so that's one of the reasons why that pairing kind of bumps up the cigar a little bit, is because it introduces something else to the palate that wasn't there on its own.
Okay. Yeah, I think with the whiskey, the best thing that I did was add a little bit of water. And I mean, I think this is one that like I've already kind of made my opinion known of, OYO at the time, whatever it might be, is that it wasn't necessarily my favorite of even like the local distilleries in the Columbus, Ohio area. I liked what they were doing. I enjoyed some of the other products, but when I first saw that OYO, and I remember I said at an event, the cigar event, they were actually the sponsor, if you will, or the whiskey, the spirits there. And I remember taking a sip of them, like, it's new. I'm interested to see where it goes. Is kind of what I thought. And so doing this, you guys did a great thing, especially the first time around. Adding that dash of water has had a great effect on it, where it did take away any of the things that I thought I wasn't enjoying as much, which again, I've enjoyed. I'm not just drinking this to drink it here. I mean, I've enjoyed it. If it was something I didn't enjoy, I probably wouldn't get inebriated on this podcast tonight. So
we probably would have gone to one of the other bottles already.
Might have steered a little bit away from it, but
that's why I brought another bottle just in case.
I brought the middle.
You gotta have that backup.
But I gotta tell you, it's interesting. Like when I'll rate this, I'm gonna rate this on its own. I give it a 7. Adding a dash of water, that's going up to like an 8.
Bumps it up. Okay.
8.5, something like that. I mean, this is like this now. We're like, this is a rye whiskey. Again, to Nate's point, if you could do a blind taste test with this, literally pour out the same bottle, same amount or whatever. And if you handed me like cup A, cup B, and you gave me this, just as it is out of the bottle in A, and B with a dash of just a drop or two of water, and you said, what do you think? On my limited experience, I wouldn't think it was the same. I would have thought, I was like, well, B is definitely more age on it. It's more balanced. It first one had a little bit, like Nate said, the acidity. It's got a little bit of like a bite, B, that's really good. What is this? So I think that's something that, speaks a little bit. Maybe it is a little bit still high proof for what it is in that bottle that you guys are bottling up out of that barrel, and cutting it down just a little bit more has introduced some new flavors to it. And taken away some of the ones I didn't enjoy as much from the first, sips of cup A versus cup B.
So you're saying like this is a blend that is better in probably that 90 to 100 proof,
probably,
instead of that 109.8.
Yeah. I'm not looking for barrel strength on something like this project. You know what I mean? I'm looking for something where maybe you proof it down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about companies before where they will sit there, especially when they do their barrel picks, they literally sit there and proof it down like 2 points at a time until they find what they think is that sweet spot, and that's what they bottle it at.
Yeah. Yep. And to Ray's point, I'll put it up on there. He says that would of course be a first. Steve not shit faced by the end of the podcast. It's happened before.
Yes, it has.
It's happened before where I have not been shit faced at the end of it, and it's happened when I have been shit faced. So I'm not going to say what tonight's going to bring, but you know what? You come back every week, so good to see you.
The night is young.
Yeah. I got a long walk inside the house. So the cigar, I'm right there again. This is something this is a very interesting pairing tonight for me. The cigar by itself, 7. This isn't, when I've smoked it on its own, my favorite Espinosa, just in general. Like, I thought it was a good cigar. It's okay. You know, like I said, a little dryness on the palate when I'm smoking the cigar. It's enjoyable. A little bit too pronounced on some of that smokiness, the oakiness, and all that stuff. Again, but with a pairing, I'd give the cigar closer to an 8.5. I think, again, this is something that you add a little bit something with the whiskey that we're drinking, add a little bit of water, it gets better. With the cigar on its own, probably 7, if you want to write that down. And then moving on to the pairing, I'd say the pairing is an 8.5 because it gets better. The cigar gets better with the whiskey that you guys created, through this project. This may actually bring out some cigars that are in that 7 or something range that are medium to full body, whether it be a San Andreas wrapper or whatever it might be. But doing that, this is one of those pairings that I think it elevates everything a little bit. And I like that. That's great. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a bottle that is in, on your bar that you're like, yeah, it's okay. Those are those bottles that when you're smoking a cigar that is either a really good cigar that you love or even that cigar is okay. If you go home and you're like, let's have a drink and smoke a cigar, pull that bottle, pull that okay bottle, that okay cigar. Yeah. That's your pairing. Right. Don't outshine it with something. I love this cigar. I love this bottle. I don't care for this cigar, but I love this bottle. Whatever. I mean, pull those okay cigars and bottles and let's pour that and light that. I think this is something that was cool that we haven't really talked about a lot on this podcast, but this is something that you can do where you're like, yeah, I have, 5 of those cigars. I smoked a couple of them. I don't really like it. I don't really go back to it. I have that bottle. You can see it's 3/4 full. I've had a couple glasses. It's okay. Pull that bottle, light up that cigar, see what happens with that. If you think that might those might actually go well together. I bet you will enjoy that bottle and you'll enjoy that cigar better. And to that note, you'll go through that bottle, you'll go through those cigars, and you'll enjoy all of those, as opposed to looking at the bottle like, I shouldn't have spent that money on that bottle. Like, I can't. What friend of mine is going to drink that's doesn't know anything about whiskey? That's
Jeff the Creed.
That's what I'm pulling that off on. It's not bad. I got so many other options. I don't want to do this. I think there's something to it. I think you can actually pair a little bit like that. And to you guys' point of what you're doing with this project, it's about experimenting. It's about learning from it. And I think this is something that's kind of a cool project. So
Now to your point with finding stuff that I'm not sure if I liked it. So I know with whiskeys, there's times where we've talked and it's like, man, I bought this bottle. I was real excited about it. I poured a glass and I was like, ooh, I'm not sure if I love that. Right. And then it's like, I'll put it up on the shelf for a little bit. I'll revisit it later. Yeah. And then there's times where I'll revisit the bottle and for whatever reason, it gets better. Yeah. You start to do cigars. Obviously, you don't want to let it sit on the table, but if you've had a cigar and you're like, I'm not sure. Do cigars sitting in the humidor, hanging, you giving some time with it, do they ever come back to it and go, man, I really enjoyed that a lot more? Something about the fact that it, that I took some time and came back to it. Does it change those?
So there's something there. I know, Nate, you want to comment. I'll say this, and I don't want, you might have something different. Once you crack a bottle and you put that cork back in there, right, there is a little bit of that openness. You've already cracked it, right? So there's going to be
oxygen introduced. Yep,
exactly. Same thing with a cigar, right? So once it comes from the factory, it's shipped to the retailer or however you acquire that cigar. If you age it in your humidor, and it's different, like wine, the wines, going back to what we were talking about, like the cabs and stuff like that. You'll have, this bottle was a 2016 bottle. And if you look at people that know what they're talking about, you look at these publications, they're like, this bottle will be best in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How the fuck do you know that?
Yeah, exactly. It's
right. Like, because they do this shit all the time. They know what they're talking about to a point. And it could be wrong, right? You know what I mean? It could be. It's like, you take you see I don't know, like ibuprofen in your cabinet that, it's like, well, it expired in 2020. It's 2022, but it's the beginning of the year. Like, I'm still going to take it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. It'll do most of the job, I think. And it's like wear out. Like, there's other legal reasons they probably do that. Exactly. I'm not recommending any of this stuff. I'm saying that with cigars and whiskeys, and you crack that bottle, you age a cigar, yes, it will actually affect it with the time, what you've done with it, especially if you crack the bottle, you get down to here, and then you pour another one, you're down here and all that stuff. And now you're all of a sudden you're where we're at in this bottle, and it sits for a year. It could be good. It could be worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It could affect it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done some things with some cigars that are in my humidor. So one, when it comes to aging cigars, you really don't want to do that with a mild cigar because it's just going to get lighter. Like there's no point doing it with a mild cigar. With a stronger cigar, sometimes it will take away some of the bite, a little bit of the strength, but it might keep some of that richness there. So it might make that cigar, that was a medium full or full body cigar more medium, but it still has some of that meaty, rich characteristics to it. But at the end of the summer, I was smoking some cigars that I've had in my humidor for a couple of years, and I was sitting there going, "Damn, I should have smoked this cigar right when I bought it."
Yeah,
because aging it actually took too much out of the cigar. I enjoyed that cigar more, right out of the humidor in the shop.
Sure.
And there are certain manufacturers. I will say this is empty glass. You guys need something, just a dash, just to cheers with. We'll move on to some. There are manufacturers that when they finally ship to when they're ready to ship from the warehouse, right? So not only the factory, but then they warehouse it, they humidify it. There are some companies, and I think a lot of them do, and they don't talk about it enough, is that when they're ready to ship, it's ready to smoke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So like they've done what they think as soon as that lands, and I'm not talking about shipping into like the Midwest and it's been sitting on a cold UPS truck and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Give it a week, but I'm saying they look at it. There's this thing with the Cuban cigars we talked about before, where you either had a dress box or you had like a Cuban wheel, right? Like a more functional group of cigars. The dress box is to sit a little bit longer, to my knowledge. Once you buy it, you let it age a little bit. The other ones, light them up.
Yeah.
I think in the American market, you're looking at once they ship, a lot of these manufacturers, they think that once they ship it and it goes to the retailer, goes to the online retailer, it's ready to smoke. They've done all that stuff. They aren't shipping product. Granted, you look into like one of those things where if they're like trying to push it out, some manufacturers will try to push it out a little early. But when everything's moving along and they're not on back order, they're just like, this is a common supply chain thing. Once you get that in your hand, you buy it from a tinderbox at Easton, you can light that up right then. It's ready to go. It's not about aging anymore. That's not the American market, especially, way of going about these things. That's how they do it. So,
Okay.
Guys, with that, part one, thank you very much to Tinderbox at Easton. Throw the banner up here. If I can see there. That's right. Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. They've got the Espinosa line, big chunk of their line, the portfolio, but also the Sarsaparilla. We still have some left. If you guys go in now until next podcast on Wednesday, you will get 15% off the Sarsaparilla. So if you guys want us to ship you at the very least a 5-pack while supplies last, we're not going to order any more, but while you have that, or if you're in the Columbus area, you like this cigar, you want to get some, you can come in. If you're local, you can buy one. It'll be 15% off until next Wednesday. So take advantage of that. Thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for the cigar and the support. Altadis USA, we're going to be lighting up the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series. That's made by AJ Fernandez. That's going to be our second featured cigar. And thank you, Josh Bentley and everyone at Altadis. Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room,
Butera, Onyx,
countless almost different cigars from them. But check them out. Again, congratulations. Josh called today. Number 2 on Cigar Aficionado, the Monte Cristo 1935 anniversary.
My favorite cigar.
Fantastic. Also an AJ Fernandez blend for them. A little more age. You won't disclose it, but check them out as well. BS Cigar Company Gold and Silver are also available. If you guys are interested in that, message the podcast. We will get you in the right direction on how you can acquire those and enjoy those cigars. The gold is Plasencia. The silver is Espinosa as well. And then patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That's the way you guys can do it monthly, or you can do it for a few months, whatever it is, $5, $10, $25. Thank you all you guys for the support. That gets us little stuff, right? What you guys consider just something that we can do, but doing this, it's doing the StreamYard, which gets us out there. It's posting the audio, heaters, refilling the propane tanks in the middle of the winter. It helps.
That's big.
It's big,
That's
as
big.
these guys know
That's
now.
big.
But also, if you guys want to do a one-time contribution, or you want to buy us a bottle, message that in that Venmo at Bourbon and BS. And then also Patreon members get a discount. But if you guys want to get some of the swag, try to get this 3/4 sleeve. We already have the shirt that Nate has on tonight. To pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. We've got that in several colors, and also some BS Cigar Company, 4 colors right now. And we're going to do another charity shirt probably at the beginning of February. We'll get that green shirt up there. So we have about 6 weeks leading up to St. Patrick's Day, leading up to the Smoking 10 event with the tinderbox.
Yes.
Love to see, I don't care how cold it is, you can be layered up. I would love to see all of you 200, 300 people coming into the Smoking 10 event wearing that podcast shirt in the green. That means every shirt you see, $10 went to the St. Baldrick's Foundation. And that is for child cancer research. And I love that
Fantastic
organization.
cause.
So
What did we end up with? 11 of the pink cherry
yeah,
shirts for-
$110, and I'm going to be putting that in. As soon as we pull that off, I'll be doing that. I'll do a screenshot of it, put it on the community page, put it on the podcast. $110 towards the
National Breast Cancer Foundation.
That's exactly right. So
Nice.
you do have another day today if you guys want to do it tomorrow before By Jack pulls it off. The website said charity pink shirt that says the same thing. It's bold. You guys all look good in
I was
pink.
this close to wearing that one tonight.
All right, guys. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Yep.
Cheers.
Stay tuned for part 2. Is hindsight 2020? Clear. We're still live, by the way, but clear for part 1. You guys need to hit the head.
Cool. I'm doing okay, actually.
I'll probably run in here after he does.
Yeah.
Got top off.
Top off what?
Well, so we can top off. How about that?
I might actually bring Tony out here just to hang out in the garage. He's going nuts with the bathroom and the open
Tony!
doors. Tony.
Tony,
And I don't think he'll probably sniff at that, but
you know what I did last night?
Some fire.
Yes, you can.
Fire.
so first time on the podcast, guys. You guys have listened before briefly, I'm sure, at least at one point, maybe not.
Oh yeah, I catch it mostly on Facebook.
Yeah,
I'll be
that's where we
sitting
get most of
there.
it. Like right now, we have 11 people listening live. It keeps fluctuating between about 10 and 20 or so people. It goes up and down. We get some of these comments up here.
Yeah, I try to listen, and then one of the kids will get out of bed, and I'm like, oh my god, put him back in bed.
I'll be honest. I'm a first-time visitor and first-time listener. So
But
Yep,
in his
yep.
defense,
No
he
idea
doesn't
what to
listen.
expect.
I'm
He
not
doesn't
on
listen to
Facebook, so I
podcasts.
can't.
We're on YouTube as well, and also iTunes, Spotify.
Okay. So yes,
I remember my first time, Sean.
but
Yeah. Remember your first time?
this may
It's
be a regular
never-
thing for me. This is
No,
good.
it's
Never what you.
It's not great. So, yeah. Yeah, it's okay, guys. Gets better every time.
Drinks got me through.
Train really supported me, really kind of supported and embraced,
Held me while I cried after.
Mhm.
Yep.
There have been some emotional moments on this podcast.
Why are they? No, I meant after the first time. Is
Oh.
what.
There have been
I told you
times-
I will make it weird. I will take it up there for you.
Part 2 then.
Yeah.
No, if you guys ever want to go back to
Whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Oh, there we
What are
go.
you doing? You breaking?
No, it was an empty beverage.
Oh, okay.
Empty
it was the
beverage.
lug nut. We're good.
Recycle here.
We
Right in.
do, but go ahead, yeah. Yeah, if you guys listening, and also Eric, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, both these guys, actually Sean Wilkinson and Shannon Chapman, their episodes, their part 2, the first time they were on doing their stories. We do this type of thing where sometimes we have the cigar people on, the whiskey people on, we have you guys on, but they came on along with a handful of other people over the last couple years, 3 years, where they share their life story. And there's a lot of impactful lessons that they share, and it's really, really cool to do that with those guys. And for those listening right now in the intermission, same to you guys. You can go on In fact, if you go on to like podcasts on like iTunes or Spotify, there's a way. If you subscribe to the Bourbon BS podcast, right, and we talk about someone like Shannon Chapman. If you have an iPhone, do you have an iPhone or is Google?
Yeah, Android.
Android. So
Yep.
if you have Spotify and you subscribe, you can go to like a podcast search or whatever, and you search Shannon Chapman, and you can pick, like, they should pull up those episodes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's really kind of cool.
Excellent.
You can do it that way.
Yep.
So
I'll check that out.
You
Definitely.
can't make fun of me when you come into the barbershop.
You say can or cannot?
Just the barbershop.
Okay.
I'll allow
You
it.
cut your hair though, so I can cut my
Hey, Steve Ray said he got the cigars.
Very. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So you got since August. You shipped it on August.
Nice. Well, good, Ray. What are you going to light up this morning?
Yeah, he's in Vietnam, Eric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it is morning there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. About 11-hour time
Yeah.
difference.
The best one ever when you had that old army dude on. He said, "Ray, can you go about 5 clicks out?
Oh yeah.
Look for my hand."
That was not Army. He was Marine.
Marine, my bad.
Yeah, it was the owner of Dirty Dog Cigar Shop in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. He was a Marine. He was in Vietnam and part of a demolition team, and his unit was tasked with disposing of a downed helicopter. You know, so obviously they just hook up a bunch of charges to it and blow it the fuck up, and
Mhm.
either him or the trigger man did something wrong and it went off a little early.
Ooh.
And so he lost half an arm.
Okay.
That was the funniest line.
But yeah, so he's got like the traditional, 2-prong claw with
Sure.
the wires, but then he's also got a mechanical arm that costs $100,000.
Wow.
And he actually has to come to Dublin anytime he needs it serviced. But he was actually he posted a video on their Facebook page, and it was him actually holding a cigar, cutting it, and lighting it with that mechanical arm.
Nice.
And he said one of the first things I had to teach you how to do was how to give it the middle finger.
Yes.
That was one of the first things he had to program
Naturally.
in there.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Right.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He still rides a motorcycle.
Yeah, he still rides and does a lot of stuff. Yeah,
Good for him. Good.
Tim, I believe was his
Yeah.
name.
And where does he live, you said?
So the shop he is owner of is Dirty Dog Cigar Shop in McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So just a little southeast of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And great shop. Nice walk-in humidor, huge lounge, bar, pool table. Fun times.
Cool.
Very cool.
Last year when my wife and I were in Pennsylvania for a wedding, we rode out there with my mother-in-law, and then I was like, "Hey, you need to find another ride home.
So you needed a lot of drinks.
I was like, you need to find another ride home because we are going to go to this cigar shop that's nearby, and I know you don't want to go there, and you don't want to smell me in the car the whole time back. So."
There's the star of the show. Hi. Big guy, you can say hi to everybody. Badass little dog, man.
Yeah, I got the nickname, the Russian Judge. There was an episode we had. I think it was with Alex from Ashton Cigars. That's going to be on in a couple weeks. He had brought a mezcal, which is a type of tequila, and it was the George Clooney brand. And-
Casamigos.
Yeah, Casamigos, and I was a little critical of that. I was not a huge fan, and so one of our listeners dubbed me the Russian Judge. Like everyone else is giving it like 8s, and I'm like 6.
Yeah.
So that's how I got that moniker.
I think Mark Wahlberg, isn't he coming out with it?
He just invested.
tequila.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be the next T-shirt.
So one of
Russian
our
Judge.
The Ruski Judge.
so one of our listeners that's been on quite a few times, Jonathan Herring, who works for Forge Cigars, which is a subset of General Cigar Company. he actually, when he was on a couple weeks ago with Jared from Christoph Cigars, he actually had a shirt made up that said hashtag Team Nate.
And by the end of it, he was
nice.
I said, "What does your shirt say?" He's like, hashtag Team Steve. Should have made it reversible, man. When you walk in rooting for one team, disappointed. All right, let's get rolling here.
You swung him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly. Let's see here. Sean says no one here wants to hear or search my life story. Eesh. All right. It's a good time for you guys to share it if you guys are still tuned in. We got about a dozen people tuning in right now, so definitely get the crowd out there. Be an interesting conversation here. All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 203, part 2, Beyond the BS. We are still joined in the garage by, to my left, your right, Eric Baldridge. I'm not going to do the whole thing again. But Eric Baldridge. And then we got Brad Sibley right next to him. And then Nate Hale. I'm Steve Crane. We've got some people in the garage. We also have Tony in the garage. So this could be interesting. Hopefully he will lay down. Hopefully he doesn't poop in the garage. That goes for you two also. Right. No poop in the garage, please. It goes for you guys as well.
Yeah.
Just no. There's bathrooms. All right.
Yeah.
You guys take each other for a walk. You guys can poop out there. There's some poop bags in there, whatever.
Let the dog hold the leash.
I think I got one in my pocket, a poop bag. If you need it. I do. I'm a dog dad. I'm like, what is that? Oh, yeah. Poop bag.
But you're a responsible dog dad.
Right.
Typically.
That's what it is. You're responsible.
Typically. Thanks to our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton. We were just finishing up. Still finishing up the Sarsaparilla.
Yeah, just finished mine.
By Espinosa Cigars. Check that out. 15% off if you guys want to do it between now and next Wednesday, time of this taping right now. So, guys, check that out. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Support your local brick and mortar or support your remote brick and mortar like Ray Cheshire did from Vietnam. He supported Tinderbox at Easton by getting a handful of cigars, actually a big handful of cigars. He had some friends that were actually traveling. So hopefully the Vietnam the government's not listening that they said too much already.
I don't think they give a shit.
You never know. Altadis USA, we will be lighting up and Nate just did the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series, also made by AJ Fernandez, who has done their number 2 cigar of the year with Cigar Aficionado, the Monte Cristo 1935 anniversary. Great cigar. Both of them are great cigars. So we'll be smoking that. Thank you to Altadis USA and Josh Bentley for all the support from there. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. Gold is Plasencia. The silver is Espinosa as well, just like the Sarsaparilla. And also to you guys, patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. You guys can contribute on a monthly basis until you cancel. It also gets you a Patreon special price on the swag site, which is buyjack.com. That's byjack.com/bourbonandbs for all the shirts. I'm wearing a prototype that hopefully will be available coming up in the next several weeks. Nate is wearing a t-shirt. That hoodie is a prototype that never made it. I'm jealous that he has that because that was my idea, and I don't even have one of those.
I think about every 10 minutes you need to get him to do this too, by the way.
Yeah,
every time.
The viewer, I don't know if the viewers will go up or down. We'll find out. If you guys want to do a one-time contribution, don't do it through Patreon. Just do it through Venmo at Bourbon and BS. That'll be something that will get us support on one-time donation or contribution to the show. We can buy a bottle. If you guys want us to do something specific, you guys can just put that in the note, and I'll talk to you about that going forward. All right. It's funny. We're doing this, and I messaged Brad today. I said, "What are you thinking for a topic, if you have any?" And he said, "What do you think? Which one's this?"
That is the vanilla.
All right. And what did it start as?
Same juice, just in a smaller barrel.
Okay.
So aged a little bit less time. But everything else is the same about it. We just did the vanilla cask first, the vanilla beans and all that kind of stuff.
This is where you season that barrel with your wife's vanilla extract.
Yes. No, I like it that way. Yeah. I think it's.
I don't know if I want to.
I think it's a good description of
your wife's vanilla.
Thank you, Aaron.
in
Thank
this
you.
one.
That's right. That's right.
Super personal.
Don't make it weird.
You did.
As long
You
as
need
she,
some of that?
as long as she doesn't know where you live, Steve.
How about this? I might have made it weird, but it's not weird for me.
I don't want to talk about what I'm going to taste. Anyways,
Now this
all
one's
right.
going to have this one's been aged a little, obviously a little bit less. I think this was a 4-month, obviously a smaller barrel. So again, like we had talked about before, smaller the barrel, the less time, so on and so
Accelerated
forth.
Right.
But I mean, you'll definitely pick out the vanilla profile from it. I think I can definitely smell it in
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
for
Yep.
sure. I should just drink it straight from the mason.
If you're the last one, for
Yeah,
it,
it's-
sure, why not?
It's your guys' stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
It's quiet air because we're all
Mhm.
sipping on that after that. Very interesting description.
And this one right here, along with everything else, we were just trying to figure out things we could do. We had 5 barrels sitting there, and we're like, "What the hell are we gonna do next?"
I taste the vanilla a lot more than I smelled it.
Yeah. But it's nice. It's
Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's enjoyable
yeah.
on the palate. Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't do a 20-liter barrel of this stuff
Ooh.
for multiple reasons. I'd have to buy a lot of extract, and then or coaxed it from her.
Or
Take
she-
that
or
how
she-
you want. Take it how you want.
Or she
All
could have
right.
left your ass.
Yeah.
With all due respect, can we stop talking about your wife's extract? Because I feel like
Hold on, man. Let me get her to log in here.
Let's get her in remotely.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Can you bring her
joining us.
picture up for me, please?
All right.
She's
We've
gonna
done
love
that.
that.
So the Beyond the BS topic tonight is hindsight 2020. I'm shocked that no major media outlet that I've seen has utilized this as a headline based on the fact that all the shit we went through in 2020, this is the tagline. This is gold. It's hindsight 2020, right? If you the common saying is obviously, hindsight is 2020. If you knew then what you know now, you would do things the same or differently. You would react in a different manner, possibly, or some things would be consistent. If you knew then what you know now, again, hindsight is 2020. When you make mistakes and you talk about things, it's kind of like, well, hindsight's 2020. You didn't know that then. And I think that this is a great topic for this podcast and for the audience out there. If you guys want to, chime in any questions as well. This is something that when I looked at this is that with you guys doing this project, this is clearly something that you could put. A little bit. You guys could put out there of like what you're learning, right? So if you could do something differently going forward, if you have this 8-month Christmas rye, you guys would have done things a little bit differently, right? Probably. Or would you?
Absolutely.
It's this such an interesting concept there. When I look at this, the hindsight is 2020. Well, if you would have done things differently, well, it could have turned out differently. This is that whole linear type of history type of thing. A linear timeline in your life is that if you did things differently, yes, this bottle might have tasted differently. Right? It could have been better, it could have been worse. You guys could have done things. If you're looking hindsight, it likely would have been better. But that's part of growth, right? So this is one of those things that I have a toss up in my mind about hindsight being 2020 because it's one of those things is like, well, I didn't want to go through that experience in my life. I didn't want to go through that. If you guys are doing this hobby thing with the it could turn into something. All those great stories of these families that have been in the whiskey business, the cigar business, it made you who you are based on mistakes, based on the successes. So the hindsight being 2020, it's a good, in my opinion, you guys can go off of this a little bit, but it's good in my opinion that yes, maybe I would have been further on today if I knew what I know now then. But it's very contradictory because you wouldn't be the person you are today with those failures, with those successes, with those things that you would have wanted to tweak. If I would have just tweaked it a little bit, like a bottle, if I would have aged it 8 months, if we would have aged it, 9/11, you guys pulled out of there and you're like, it's not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. Were you premature pulling it out of Christmas? If you guys would have waited to 12 months, do you think it would have been better? You don't know.
Correct.
But 12 months down the road, you're like, hey, next time,
Yeah.
maybe we should do 12 months. Let's sit 8. That's our breaking point as far as when we do this. And then 9 months, we'll pull a little bit. All right, 10 months. Let's learn from these things that we did that it could have been a success, but can it be greater? I think hindsight 2020 being something that we always look at is that I would have made those mistakes. But it's sometimes if you look at like what you have in that bottle, and I'm using this as obviously literally and also metaphorically, where you could say this bottle, like we talked about, it got good ratings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I'm thrilled with what everybody's thoughts are.
Yeah, me too.
So it's not always a failure. It could be a shortcoming in a positive way that you look at that, you're like, we were debating whether or not 8 months is the right time, but Christmas was a good time. We could, market it, even though you guys aren't selling it, but we can market it as a Christmas rye. But if we waited until March, like, I don't know, St. Patrick's Day rye, like what are we gonna
Sure?
What are we gonna call it?
What are we gonna do with this now?
You know what I mean? Like, and then you go April, you're like
Easter rye,
April Fools. What's in April? You know what I mean? Like, look at the
Jesus
holidays.
rye.
Yeah.
It's the Jesus rye.
Yeah.
It's the Easter rye, depending on what year it is.
Well,
Like
yeah,
whenever
yeah.
Easter falls, like that year it was.
True.
I'm just saying, like
True, yeah.
a lot of times, is hindsight 2020. You guys are Columbus firefighters, and this is something that I think that you guys can talk about. Maybe, Brad, you said your experience. I don't know if you were talking about just with a whiskey or with your life experiences with being firefighters. You guys are obviously certified EMTs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Columbus area, you think about firefighters, back in the day, it was like you guys were, putting out fires daily. Certain big cities, they're putting out fires daily, like you think about the shows out there, it glorifies a lot of this stuff that you guys do on a daily basis. And if you, depending on where you are, I don't know. I mean, we haven't really talked about this a whole lot, but I mean, are you put out fires? Are you saving lives from the EMT route? There's got to be the bullshit runs that you guys go out on. I mean, it's all this stuff. It's like, I don't know. Never. I love having you guys on because of what you're doing with the whiskey project, like the hobby, the things you guys do for your career. And I think this is an open conversation for everyone out there. If you guys have questions for these guys, if you guys have, comments out there about what's going on in the world. But I mean, again, I will, as a added bonus, is this hindsight 2020 when all we can talk about is we want to get past the year 2020.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, this is media gold, and I'm disappointed in all these media stations for not fucking doing it. Is hindsight 2020? Did we learn anything from 2020? That's on you, Fox, CNN, all the other ones. You guys, I'm disappointed in multiple ways. That's one of them.
Cronkite would have had it.
Cronkite would have had it.
Cronkite would have had it.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. So for you guys, with your career, let's start with that. So you guys have, how long have you, Eric, been with the fire department?
Let's see. We just hit 11 years. We're classmates. We're academy classmates.
So you guys, yeah.
So we came on together, and yeah. So 11 years. It's been a good career so far.
What were you guys doing before that?
Let's see. I'm also in the Air Force Reserves.
Okay.
So I'm on my 27th year, and I'm also a firefighter in the Air Force as well.
Okay.
So
I prefer to say he's been a quarter century,
right,
because it sounds way older.
that too.
It's fair.
So I'm finishing up one career and in the middle of another. So,
And
but,
starting a whiskey career.
and starting a whiskey career, maybe. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. No, it's been good. As far as hindsight, oh man, that's an open book, man. That's you can go many avenues.
All right. So what got you into, obviously the military then first?
Yeah. Military, became a firefighter for the Air Force when I was at the ripe age of 18. And, I thought this was pretty cool. So I did my 4 years of active and moved back home here to Columbus to test for a while and finally got on. It took a while. Definitely took a while. That was partially my fault and partially not. So, but anyway, finally got on and, it's been a good career. Yeah, it's a fun job. So
obvious question, right? Would you do it again at 18? if you could talk to your 18-year-old self. I think that's the whole thing about all this stuff. You know what I mean? You can talk about last week. You can talk about, you know, like 11 and a half years ago when you got in the fire department. You know, these are those types of things that I think that you can actually, you know, self-analyze.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough because there are aspects of my life as active duty that I miss.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's some days, you know, I ask myself, did I get out too quickly? You know, I would have liked to seen the world a little bit more, get stationed at different, you know, bases around. But I've actually done that in the reserves more than I did active duty. You know, I've been everywhere in the reserve. Right. So yeah, it's been a great career, very rewarding for the reserve. So, you know, if I could talk to my 18-year-old self, would I do anything different? Gosh, probably not. I probably would have done everything the same.
That's actually really good to hear. It's really short for a podcast.
Except for be a lead foot, which I got too many speeding tickets, which prevented me from getting on Columbus Fire Department earlier. So
fair.
That's
fair.
That's one thing I would have done differently. Absolutely.
Right, we got a question. Shannon, come up here.
Yes, sir.
I was about to say, you can get Steve's mic or mine.
Someone walk on in the crowd. Sorry, guys.
So, as an 18-year-old, was that your career path? You saw yourself military, and then you fell into firefighting, or when you got into the military, you were on one route and slid in to the firefighting aspect?
Correct. It was military first. I didn't enter the Air Force wanting to be a firefighter. In full disclosure, they kind of put me in there, and you know it's been pretty rewarding ever since. But yeah, I did not go in the military as a firefighter or wanting to be a firefighter. So,
Brad, how about you? So what did you do before fire department?
Right out of high school, I actually went to culinary school.
Okay.
And got into that. Didn't like it as much as I was thinking I was going to. Yeah. And I think part of that was just different aspects of it. You know, I went straight to the, you know, an American Culinary Institute and get different jobs at different places. And you learn all kinds of stuff tonight, right?
He never cooks at the firehouse, so clearly he didn't make it.
Well, maybe. No, I was going to say.
I'm not doing that.
Because he doesn't want to, or that's why he's not in culinary school anymore?
A little bit both.
All right.
But so, side note, I never cook at home either because my wife is such an amazing cook. I was like, why would I ever?
Did you meet in culinary school?
No, I didn't. No, no. She's a nurse. So yeah, imagine that. So yeah, I got out, went to culinary school, and you know, some people in my class were, you know, had jobs where they were getting, you know, either a Friday or a Saturday off, and they were working, you know, lunch and then sometimes dinner. The place I was employed, it was Wednesday through Sunday, night shift all the time.
Ooh.
So Monday they were closed, so I had the day off on Monday. Tuesday was 12 hours of school. That was your school day. So at that point, it just got to a point I was like, man, this sucks. Like I have no time for anything. So I think, you know, you go to a different place, you get a little bit of a different experience. Maybe that would have changed something. But, you know, talking about hindsight right there, it's a good thing that nothing changed with that. I'm glad that I didn't have a better culinary experience, because if I would have, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I am right now.
Right.
So got out of that, did the, you know, worked at FedEx, worked at, you know, different, just whatever jobs during college. And, you know, at one point I was like, what in the world am I going to do? So, my pops, he was a cop, his whole family, his whole generation in the family, most of them were police officers. My grandfather and all his generation were in the fire service. So I went to him one day, and this was mid 2000, 2003, 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
I said, what am I doing? My cop, my fireman, what is it? And he said, you know, if this was the 80s, I'd tell you to be a cop all day long. Back when he got on.
Yeah.
And he said, not anymore. And it was actually pretty insightful. You look back and you see all the stuff that he called that was going to take place, which is now. I mean, being a police officer is a ridiculously hard job.
Yeah.
You know, much different than it was in the 80s and the 90s. So he said, go be a fireman. He said, everybody loves a fireman. You know, your grandfather was a fireman, so on and so forth. You've got lineage or whatever. So I've actually been in service for about 15 years. I got all my certs, went through paramedic school as well, and then got a job during the time I was trying to get on at Columbus Fire.
Yeah.
As Eric said, our list, it took a very long time. It's a very, very long process. So got on Columbus Fire finally, and just haven't looked back. I mean, it is literally the greatest job in the world, in my opinion. I could not see myself doing anything else. You know, everybody's going to give you why'd you be a fireman? And, you know, you hear all these people, especially when you go through your interview, like, I want to help people. And that is an aspect of it. I truly enjoy going to work, taking runs, helping people, doing things for people. It's a good income to be able to take care of your family.
Absolutely.
To be able to do things with your life that maybe you couldn't have done with other jobs and other careers, even just with time. The schedule is it allows a lot of flexibility. You know, you'll hear a lot of people, oh, we only work every so many days. And when you take in the amount of hours, you know, you're there for 24 hours,
24 on, 48 off.
Yeah. And so everybody's like, you get 2 days off every 3. And I'm like, yeah, but we work literally
24
a third more hours in the year than an average 40 hour. And so you do work a lot, but the schedule affords you the ability to, you know, do things with your family more, to be home. You know, my wife is able to change her schedule a little bit, so we don't have to do a lot of daycare. My girls come home every day to me or to my wife.
Right.
They don't go to daycare. And there's nothing wrong with people who have to have their kids go to daycare. I'm lucky enough that I don't have to have my daughters go to daycare. They don't come home and do the latchkey thing. They are home with me. I pick them up off the bus, and, you know, the homework and the dinner and all that, you know, we get to be together.
Yeah.
So I'm very close with my daughters.
How old are your kids?
I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old yesterday.
Okay.
So, and they're
6-year-old yesterday. That's
yes. Yeah.
Man,
I had a
she is quick.
6-year-old yesterday. Yeah. It was amazing.
one of your
right.
children turned 6 yesterday.
Talk about 0 to
Right.
100 right now. She
And God bless your wife on many reasons tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
She gave birth to a 6-year-old. That is scientific wonder. My God.
High five, Aaron.
That is long carrying time, right? Like that's
The gestation.
Just-
I don't.
it's like a barrel of whiskey that you put on the lower levels. And sorry.
So yeah, my
Very smooth. Very
Yeah,
smooth.
really,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's
I'm
very
right into
smooth.
it.
Yeah.
Right into it. So yeah, my daughters were fantastic. I've got 2 great little girls. You know, I mean, Eric's close with them. They, you know, that kind of thing. And all that, not to mention the family aspect of the fire department.
Right.
You know, on Saturdays we have pizza night, and the families all come in and we make our own pizza from scratch. And then all the families get to know each other, and the wives know each other. And, you know, we're able to go out for, you know, we're going to have a Christmas party. And we always do our Christmas party after Christmas because December is such a pain.
A little busy.
To get everything
Holidays
going.
are rough.
Yeah. So, you know, and we're at the biggest house in the city of Columbus. I mean, we have more trucks, more people. So when we get together, it is a big party. You know, just it's a great family atmosphere. We all joke around. I mean, shoot, Eric and I wouldn't have ever known each other if not. You know, we classmates, we knew each other a couple years on, and then we both bid into the same firehouse, and all of a sudden we're, you know, smoking cigars every night in the bay, and, you know, drinking whiskey on the weekends and making it now.
Hanging out after work. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because they're good friends.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, he needs something. He calls. He's like, hey, you come over and help me get this done, or, you know, hey, I need you to come help me lift this, and so, or give me a ride somewhere. So
A lot of similarities to the cigar community, honestly. Yeah.
My brother-in-law, I told you guys before the podcast, he was a firefighter, Now he's a fire marshal in the city of Hilliard. But I know for him, the hardest part of doing the firefighter schedule was missing a lot of his kids' activities because he was at the firehouse. He couldn't necessarily plan the get-togethers, seeing the kids' sporting events, volleyball, baseball, basketball, all that kind of stuff. But going through those years where he was doing that schedule and missing some of those events allowed him to then, through his education and keep going on with that career, becoming a fire investigator and then a fire marshal. He works 8 to 5. So now he's able to actually go to his kids' events, or at least when they were younger instead of graduating now. But like he regrets missing those events, but doing all that legwork in those earlier years afforded him to be able to do what he does now and spend the time with his family that he gets to now, or to be able to buy the house that he has, or the vacation home or retirement home, whatever. So there's definitely some trade-off, but he put in the work through all those crap years, so that way now things are a little bit different. Now he can do what he wants to do now.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say to your point was, we were on shift yesterday. We were on duty. So in the morning, I get up, gone already before the girls all get up. So it was like right before 8:00. I'm in the car on the way there and called my wife. We sang happy birthday to my little one. I did it over the phone. You know what I mean? Like I missed her birthday yesterday, but and then they worked on Christmas Eve this year. I didn't because I've got time on and a good day off. So
there you go.
Don't worry. Next year it's coming.
I got you next year. Maybe.
But
see where we're at.
You miss that about every 3 years. You'll miss Christmas, and then depending on the way your shifts will fall, you'll miss family events. You'll miss things. I think I worked on my wife's birthday this year too. So then I had an excuse for not having the card already, and I can pick it up on the way home.
It's the same day every year, man.
I know.
You could have had it ready before you left the house.
I could have had it ready the day after her birthday for the following year. But
so I want to introduce this because Ray and Sean are two of our most loyal listeners. One's in Tennessee, one's in Vietnam. We have some other people watching. Bill Johnson's watching. We've had some Ryan Jones. He's yes, Ryan, we still have your sign here. We need to get that to you. We signed it a long time ago. But one of the issues, so Brad asked me, where do we come up with like the topics every week, after doing this long. And they kind of, it's interesting to me is that it doesn't matter who the guest is. Sometimes you get a different conversation because they say, Ray first said, hindsight in life is a complete waste of time. In business, however, it is great. It's a great tool. Let me get back to that. Sean says, but that saying should be different. Hindsight should be blind, as all you will see is regrets. Sight now should be on tomorrow, like it's in your front sight, and let today be a little blurry.
He's talking about a sight picture with a firearm.
Yeah.
You focus on the front sight.
Yeah. And then also Sean says, oh my God, Steve Crane, are we going to do this to Nate again? And put a great seed in your head. Well, you guys didn't listen to that. And then Ray says, we've done variations on this topic. And I do love that Ray puts it out there because we do have some loyal listeners. And I would encourage you guys that are loyal listeners to absolutely share this because I want to get the viewership and the listener base bigger, because if you guys are enjoying this, there's a good chance that someone that's close to you, friend, family, or whatever, they might enjoy this conversation week in, week out. It is something where he says, has anyone ever done anything serious that they truly wish they could go back and change? So yes, we have done variations of this topic. We've never had this topic title, but I looked at this opportunity tonight with having these two guys on that I've known for several years. And I do think I don't want to necessarily, I always say this and we go down it, but it's like, I don't necessarily focus on 2020, but there is something that Brad was one of the two people that reached out to me when stuff was going down, possibly at Easton, when last 2020 summer, when that was going on with the protests and everything like that, is that you talk about these connections you have and the community that you have is like when things were going on, that people that were just watching the news, doing all this stuff, they were just forming their own opinions. But guys like yourselves that were in the heart of it,
Front line.
the front line.
We were down there.
Brad sent me in Columbus, Ohio. He sent me some video of. He's like, "Hey man, this is what's going on downtown. They're not showing on the news." And it was like, you know, SWAT vehicles going down the road, and it was like broken windows on like stores they weren't covering because it wasn't the state house. It was like shit's getting broken down here. And again, I don't want to say necessarily let's focus on that, but you know, with these comments, it's like, yes, this is a little bit different. In my mind, that having you guys on here in the careers that you were in, you know, however you got there, that's why I was trying to like preface this, like how you got to that firefighter, you know, being a fire department employee, whatever you want. Like, what do you guys consider it? Firefighter?
Yeah.
When someone asks you, what do you do for a living?
Firefighter.
You're a
Yeah, firefighter, EMTs, paramedic.
And what percentage of your career would you say, ballpark it, that you actually fought fires? Honestly, I mean, this is not calling you out. This is an honest question. Well, what are we drinking next?
Statistically,
Did you get the pour, or are you done with your pour from the Little Mason?
I'm done with the Little Mason.
Done with that one? Okay.
The
Then
vanilla,
this one is the 1915.
The 1915 classic Old Forester.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So I guess the best way to answer it is like statistically what they say is we typically do 80 to 85% of our job is EMS.
Yeah.
You know, depending on where you're at, 15, 20 runs a day, you're going to do, you know, 15, 16, 17 of them are going to be EMS. Depending on where you're at, taking a lot of fire runs, but you have to take into consideration, you know, fire alarms, CO alarms, smoke scare, that kind of stuff. And then report of a fire is also in there as well. The city of Columbus fights multiple actual working fires every day.
I believe that.
Because I mean, we're just a big city. That being said, our station does not fight a working fire every day.
Right.
There, out of the 35 stations, there's gonna be a fire within that.
Yeah.
Multiple. You know, to what level is it going to be? You know, a kitchen fire? Is it going to be fully involved? You just don't know. You know, that right there varies, but 80-85% of it is going to be EMS.
Yeah.
That's what we do, and a lot of that is because, you know, we're primary care for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, and then you take, you know, COVID into account. Numbers, it was really weird. Numbers were up and down, up and down, up and down because people were, I got to go to the hospital and how many way to get there, all the way to I'm not going anywhere, even if I have COVID or if how about this? If I'm sick, I don't want to go to the hospital because I could get COVID. You know, so you know, the percentage, I'd say 80s in there is going to be EMS to fire. But when we get fire, I mean, you're doing it. You know, you've got just on an initial call is going to have 10 trucks roll up right there.
Yeah.
And that's if it can be handled with that. And then, you know, you make it a working fire, you get more vehicles, stuff like that.
Well, and like where you are, you guys are in downtown Columbus.
Yes.
So there's a lot of skyscrapers in Columbus, or, you know, taller buildings. Those buildings aren't catching on fire on
Correct.
a regular basis.
Correct. Yeah. So with that, you know, the percentage of people doing something on one of those, even just a report of a fire that turns out to be nothing, is going to be, you get a lot more people because it's a much bigger building. You know, you've got high life hazards, things like that. So you're going to get a lot more people because you have a lot more equipment that you have to. Man down.
You're going to keep talking.
Yeah, that you need to help do the work because there's just a lot more equipment than there is on your, you know, much lower scaled, not less important, but just a lower scale single family house fire.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of thing gets taken into consideration as well.
So I used to work at Battelle, in Columbus.
Yeah.
And
The downtown one,
Yes.
right there on campus.
Yep.
Okay.
Right there on King Avenue. And there was one day where someone was moving a giant chlorine gas tank and clipped a door frame, and it cracked the nozzle on that tank, and chlorine gas started to fill into the building. And there's a lot of buildings in Battelle.
Yes.
And they're all kind of interconnected, and everyone on the entire campus had to evacuate. And they had to shut down the entire road on both sides of campus. You had heavy rescue, you had trucks, ambulances, and we could smell the chlorine gas like for days after that event. So was it a fire? No, but it was still some shit went down that.
Yeah.
Yep.
When something comes into Battelle, because it's not our first in, but we get there extremely quick. We're right there.
Oh yeah.
When you get an alarm of any kind, report of a fire, anything at all at Battelle, it's a bad day for everybody. So and we mitigate things very well, but it is very much a different. Oh boy, we're going to Battelle, and it's next level.
Well, yeah, and the down. I won't go into it too much, but the stuff in the downtown office, which is actually the corporate headquarters, they do not have some of the same risks or threats as other locations nearby for Battelle. I won't say where, but yeah, different types of threats. But it's still, because there's so many people. Battelle only has the one tall building, but because they have so many buildings and so many employees. When there's something going on there, yeah, it's not one station, because there's not one station in Columbus that can handle that campus. And if something happened at that campus, one station can handle it. Like, no, it's hey, who's available?
Yes, right. Very much.
But I think when Steve was talking about some of the listener comments, and Steve brought up Sean, I think one of Sean's points that he was trying to make is we recently had an episode that was called "What If," and Sean, with his military and law enforcement background, like, what if is a bad thing to waste your time on, is what his point of view was, because you can just burden yourself and add more stress and mental strain thinking about all the what ifs than just going one day at a time.
Right.
Do you ever get those? Do you ever get those days at the firehouse or after a run where you start having those? What if I did this? What if I did that?
Yes. Yeah, I've had a few of those. You do something wrong on a fire, or if you're operating the pump, on the pumper, and you make one little mistake, something doesn't go, something goes wrong. I've learned not to dwell on the past and just learn from those mistakes. But yeah, you feel like shit when you get back to the firehouse. If your lieutenant screams at you, or worse, the battalion chief or something, it's happened. Hey. But you learn from it. Don't dwell on it.
Regardless of what your profession is, you're going to have mistakes. You're going to fuck up.
Right.
You're just hoping to avoid the major fuck ups.
Exactly.
Like you're hoping you don't do something that actually endangers one of your brothers.
Right.
That's what you're trying.
Absolutely.
Because that'll really fuck you up for the what if going forward, and the hindsight. Like, you'll spend way too much time focusing on that, and it'll actually hinder you going forward and doing the job the next time.
Right. Because
you're still focusing so much previously, you forget to do what's in front of you.
Yep.
Well, I think sometimes you guys can, obviously your guys' profession is, like, to Nate's point, is, you can do something that, could have cost the business some money. It could have cost you, your paycheck or your bonus or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? It could affect you guys. Clearly, in most occupations, it's not going to cost a life, and life, your guys can, right? So, I'm not necessarily going to ask you guys to share any of those incidents in the last, whatever, almost 12 years that you guys have had that, because I don't want you guys to have to necessarily talk about that. But I mean, this is something that, either you have been through it or some of your coworkers have been through that situation, that you probably know that person if it's not yourself. And again, I'm not trying to dial in or get you guys to share that, because I mean, if you want to, that's fine. But I mean, I think this is something that, there's always something that when hindsight is 2020, it can be something that is a careless mistake that could, you took a wrong turn.
That's
you know what I mean? That's a
right.
Well,
that one, because, and I say it's a because it happens probably on a daily basis throughout the city somewhere.
Right.
In the vast majority of our lives, you take a wrong turn, you might be late to work. You might, like, oh man, like I was on my way and I was late to the movie because of that. In your profession, you take a wrong turn or you do something on the route to something that could have been those minutes, right? And I get that. The hindsight's 2020. You can't necessarily correct that. To raise question, which I love when he said, we've done variations on this topic before, has anyone done anything serious that they truly wish they could go back and change? When you look back and if the outcome was catastrophic, it could be very, very small. Such a small thing. And it wasn't the fact that you did something wrong, but something happened and you could say, man, I wish I would have been in, like, I'm thinking about your guys' runs. It's like, I wish I would have been in the left lane instead of the right lane because, the sirens were going, we were going down there. And if I would have just changed lanes, half mile back, I would have missed this one car. We would have been able to save this person. Like, these are those major issues on the very minute thing that you take in all those outside variables. The people that are driving, the whatever it might be, the traffic lights that, people were crossing the street and all that stuff. A very literal type of hindsight, like if I would have just shifted lanes over one. You don't always know why, but you always run it back. Like to Nate's point, all that stuff, you're running it back. But I do think to raise question is like, these are those literal things that, like, even not necessarily metaphorical, but like taking it out of your occupation on a day-to-day basis, because that is something that was taken for granted for a long time, I think, from the general public. And then all of a sudden you go into like what you guys do for everyday, living, all the things that were going on in the last, 2 years. And before that, but especially the last 2 years, it's like the fact that your presence was demanded elsewhere for other issues, whether it be political or whatever they might be, is that now all of a sudden you guys are stretched thinner. You know what I mean? So let's take a step back from that. Shannon, you want to say something, but I think it would be good to kind of talk, on a personal level, for all of us and anyone out there, if you guys have these things, so if you have a scenario, back to you, Ray, asking that question, is there something in your life? Because I know him very well, is that it's not always been like sunshine and rainbows. It's like, I met the love of my life. I had the career of my life. And it's just like streamlined until where I'm at right now, at his age and retired. It's like, oh, it's all smooth. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Bullshit. You know what I mean?
True.
It's the same thing. Doing what we're doing now on the podcast. This has been in existence for 3 years. What led us up to being here tonight? That's one of those things that's hindsight's 2020. Would we have done things differently? Absolutely. Probably. Yeah. There's little things that you would have changed, but would it lead us up to this moment? Shannon, go ahead.
I was thinking along the lines, you're say about 80% of your runs are about EMS and all that kind of stuff. Over the last, 10, 11 years you guys have been in, have you seen this increase of, I don't want to say less firefighting, but more of like since fentanyl and all this shit has hit the ground, how crazy has that part of your job gotten with those kind of runs? Because the drugs are just off the chain right now. And I know from some of my other friends that work with you guys that a big part of their runs is these big drug runs, not drug runs, but overdose runs. Thank you. Yeah. Overdose runs and stuff like that. How's that affected your mentality when you go into these things, like seeing, I guess, like the worst of humanity in that aspect? Like, how does that affect you on a daily basis?
You take it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen an increase in overdose runs, and throughout the years. Absolutely. Being downtown, we get more of a broad spectrum of runs than, say, one of the inner city stations would, that would deal more with, you know, EMS runs at somebody's house, overdose, things like that. We get the fire alarm sprinkled in there. We get, you know, runs to, you know, I don't know, a bar or restaurant for, you know, just somebody being drunk. We also get, you know, some of the homeless shelters downtown. We have a little bit of residential sprinkled in there, but so I think being downtown, we don't see as many overdose. Right.
Crushed.
Yeah. 14's south end of the city, right there on Parsons Avenue, you know, for the listeners that know where that is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they get crushed with overdoses, you know. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I've definitely seen an increase. You know, you learn from the last run and do it again on the current run, or do it better.
Does that have any kind of mental effect on you at all? Because I have a couple relatives that I mentioned, you know, that are in the fire service that have done EMS, and they go on those runs, and after they do those runs, like mentally, they're just so exhausted and they almost feel demoralized, you know, whether they save that person or not.
Right.
But like, because they see that stuff so often, and you're talking about how you've seen an increase in some of that stuff, especially in other stations, depending on where they're located, what kind of impact does that have going forward?
Right. You definitely become numb to it, and you have to develop a numbness to it. You know, I've kind of always prided myself on, you know, just putting shit away after the run, just prepare for the next. Don't even think about it. You know, we've all had some tough runs, kids, you know, whatever, drownings, things like that. You know, it's always rough to see that shit, but you know, you just got to learn to put it away and don't, you know,
So how do you do that?
Me personally, well,
no, I'm saying because this is something that like we're talking like, you know, Shannon's
you could be
question.
a heartless dick like me, and
No.
You can't, but you can't just
Lots of whiskey.
Right.
But you can't just bury that shit forever.
True.
So let me
You have to do something.
standpoint. Yeah, exactly. Standpoint here. You know, you're being very, you know, literal with their occupation, but I think there's some life lessons here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because yeah. All right, so maybe you are a heartless dick. You know, like, you know, we're all a little bit of an asshole, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, I'm of the opinion that you two and everyone else in that occupation, while we're talking about that, you wouldn't be in that occupation, especially in the beginning. Vast majority don't do it just for a paycheck and a pension.
Sure.
Some do. Absolutely. Some do. You guys have probably known those guys that they probably didn't last. You know, or they're the guys you don't want to work with.
Right.
Because they don't necessarily do things for the better of people. And I am of the opinion of what I know about you two and some other firefighters and the EMT or EMS,
Sure,
that you do it in the beginning, that there is a goodwill there. You know, you don't, you know, it's like doctors. It's like, you know, right now in the current climate we're in right now, as far as like opinions and political and everything else, is that, you know, doctors are just in it for the paycheck. And it's like, no, like there's still some out there. The majority of those people, just like anything else out there, it's like that 80-20 rule. Like there's at least 80% of the people that go into your profession to help, to save lives, whether it be a fire or whether it be a run, whether it be like this. And yes, you get beat down, and you do. I'm sure you guys, I think I know you well enough that there are times that you do feel like you're a heartless dick because you just went out on a run, and this fucking asshole just, you know, basically made a selfish decision to put not only you guys at risk, but all the people that care about them at risk. That you are now, this is your run that you're on, and you cannot help them. And even if you save them that night, you're just waiting for the next call to that location.
Right.
It's
right.
The fact of the matter. It's like that friend out there that you have that it's like, I can hear you out. I can give you my advice. We can do all this stuff. And the first couple times, you know, it's going to be a good conversation. And I think that I'm making an impact on you. I think that we're making progress. And then all of a sudden it repeats, and then it repeats again, and it repeats again.
Stop giving that advice.
And that heartless dick or heartless asshole that you're referring to is that we all have that in our personal lives. We can branch this over to our personal lives. You try to help someone, and then all of a sudden it's like there's never a given time limit of when you actually transition to I'm a caring friend to I care about you and I am your friend. I see your name pop up on my phone as a text message or as a phone call, and I'm like, and you roll your eyes. Yeah, Brad just did for those on audio. He like kind of like tilts his head back and he's like, here we go again. All right, you take a breath, and you take that phone call, you answer back to that text, but sometimes it does test you, especially when it's not your job.
Absolutely.
But
So,
you literally like, I'm busy and I'll get back to them. I'm going to give it a couple hours and I pray for the best that they aren't doing something bad.
But you also let them fall on their face.
You try to, and you will feel regret likely that if something bad happens, you know what I mean? If they're like that person, but you're like, I've tried to get them help. I've tried to be that help. I've tried to do all this stuff. I've tried to give them advice. They just won't get out of it. And at some point, your capacity is you have to take care of yourself. And you can't do that.
Right.
I'm sure that emotion, that feeling is absolutely in your guys' profession as well, is that you've been out. You've probably seen a frequent flyer.
Oh, yes.
yeah.
What you may call as a repeat customer.
Right.
And it's tragic.
It is, especially when it's twice or more in a 24-hour period.
Ooh.
That's where
We just left you.
Right. Exactly. That's where you're like, okay, I'm not making a difference anymore in this person's life, and they don't obviously care. So why should I? I never want to have that mentality going into the job, but it's like, why are we even here? If I'm here twice in a 24-hour period for the same overdose, let's just say, why am I here? So,
well, yeah, I mean, because I know my relatives that are in the service have had those, those EMS runs where it's just the person looking for a fix. The hardest part, I remember talking to them, the hardest part they had was when they had that next run to that same location. They couldn't go in. They're like, I can't go into that going, oh shit, here we go. This person's just looking for a fix and not care.
right.
You still have to have the same level of care and empathy as though it was your first time there.
Right.
And I think with your guys' position, that's a tough thing to do sometimes, but it comes with the job.
Yeah. I mean, that is, they try to say, like when you go through, we call it P school, medic school, P school, paramedic school, whatever you call it. You'll go to that same address and the address, the person's name. You've already, I know people that the person is either so drunk or so high that they keep a notebook just so they've got the info, because they know going into this place, they're not going to be able to give it to me. I can't get to do my report and to pass them off to the hospital. That's how often you'll see them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you're told is you have to go into every single run with the same mentality as you did the first time you went there, because
It's impossible.
Yes, but the theory is today or yesterday, you were telling me you had chest pain or you over whatever, and it was nonsense. And the day before that, it was nonsense. And the day before that, it was nonsense. It doesn't mean that today you can't have a heart attack.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
if I don't go there with the mentality of I got to do all the stuff. I know this is not a heart attack, but I need to do all the stuff to make sure it's not, because I can't leave you hanging and then you don't go to the hospital. It's not taken seriously when you go to the hospital and something bad happens this time. You know, you're allowed to have a bad day today just because you had nonsense days before. Today, you're allowed to have a bad day.
Yeah, you guys are actually paid to, I think of two things right now. Get some of that Christmas rye here to fill this conversation here. And to Ray's point, we'll see if I get.
I have to pass the water around too because I got to drive at some point.
I got water.
So
we also have a great Uber driver that probably knows this house.
Yeah, that might be where we're going because that way I'm not.
There we go. Here, I'll pass this around. You grab that.
Thank you, sir.
There's two sides of it. You guys build up callus, right? This is something that you guys do. You know, you beat yourself up, right? You know, you go back to like we talk about like, you know, health and fitness a lot of times on this podcast.
I'm okay.
That's good. I got it. But
we got yelled at about talking about health already.
Yeah, well,
didn't we?
Well, no, that was a different aspect.
It's a different aspect.
Ray's still tuned in. We'll get back to it. But I look at that as that, you know, you look at like the calluses on my hand, your guys' hand, and you know, like that hard work that you put in, it hurts, right? And you guys have that probably built around you. We all have that with those people I was talking about in your life, you know, and sometimes you're that person. But sometimes, you know, people around you or you guys going out to these runs that we're talking about, you build up this callus and you don't care as much. You don't feel it as much. You know, it's like when you are doing that, it's like it hurts the first time when you see that person like that. The second time you do that exercise or whatever, and you're building those calluses, you're learning to play guitar, you know, and they talk about like learning to play guitar. It's like the biggest problem is that you can't hold the strings because it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you do it more and more, you get better at it because now you don't feel that pain. You just don't. And I think that's something that you guys may not always look at in what you're talking about, is that that's something that in your guys' occupation, and I think a lot of those, like with the people in your life, that might be those things that are building calluses on how you react to certain things. There is a mindset that I think that is sometimes glanced over that we all can actually appreciate about ourselves, or if you're calling on those people. Basically, the fact of the matter is that as you build those calluses, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care or you don't feel for that. You just physically or mentally, emotionally, whatever that sense is that you're still going to do it and you're good at it. You're getting better at it. You guys have gotten better at your job. You've gotten better at maybe working with the people in your life, whether you've known them for a long time or it's the next person that has a similar issue of people that you've dealt with. These are those things that it's like, you know, that is hindsight 2020, is that there is an appreciation of learning from your past that actually can affect the next time you deal with that person, next time you deal with that situation, next time you deal with a new person or situation, that you actually have taken the time. It's not just about what these guys are talking about. And I love having these guys on, you know, like Ray and Sean and all that stuff, is that you're absolutely right. We've talked about this, but on a different angle, is that it doesn't always have to be, when you look at it, it's hindsight 2020. Probably, if you actually look at it accurately, you take some outside opinions on that. And you're like, yeah, I could have done things differently that would have done better for what my personal interest is. But the lesson is not always about what you could have done, but it's like when this situation presents itself, when you get that run again, you're not as emotionally invested, which a lot of people look at it as like that's a negative. But sometimes I think, especially when it's your guys' job, I think it's something that's like you have these calluses on your hand, or you have the callus of your being, right? Now I'm just going out to do my job. Might be a little bit annoyed. Again, I'm dancing back and forth to some of these topics here where it's like, you know, it's like, I don't want to go to the gym and, you know, it hurt. I can do it again. I just don't want to like go through it again, but I'm going to do it. You show up to the job, you show up to the gym, you show up to whatever it is in your life that you're trying to continue on, that you think is worthwhile. Is that those calluses can actually be a very valuable thing where you're not as emotionally invested, in a sense that when you were emotionally invested to that person, you may not have reacted the way that you should have.
Your focus could be different.
Right.
Your focus is on that person, as opposed to you take, you know, tying it back to the easy one is, you know, overdose runs. You know, you're walking in and your emotion, you're tied to that person as opposed to what you have to do. And if I'm focused on them, I'm less focused on the fact that I need to open my kits, pull out the Narcan, get it administered now, make sure that I'm breathing for them, all that kind of stuff. You know, and you want to care because you're not doing it. You're not doing this job because because you don't care.
Yeah.
Your job is to bring them back, to make sure if they're not breathing, you breathe for them. If you're sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe it. Look at all this stuff. And you have 2 kids sitting right here. And now I'm not breathing for them right now, And so, when you can learn to focus in on your job, it's not that you, like you said, it's not that you don't care. You're focused on, I have to do this, this, and this. Once they're breathing, sitting up, talking, they are, now you can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Now you can talk to them. And again, then you can bring your caring back into it, but, and kind of tying in the callus, the 2020, all that kind of stuff. Being able to look back, I would say that, being able to plug the CFD right now is that we have learned from our past mistakes.
Yeah.
The fire service has a high rate, and I say higher than you'd want to see, period, of suicide or of alcohol, of drug addiction, fire service in general. I'm not just talking about Columbus Fire.
Yeah.
But the fire service in general has got a higher rate of that kind of stuff because of the things that people have seen. And so from that, you'll have people who they'll quote unquote, they'll snap, or they'll go down a dark hole or a dark path. So one of the things that, looking in hindsight, is we've now implemented the peer support teams, things like that. I mean, a guy that we used to work with, a really good friend of mine, a mentor of mine, he heads this thing up where, it's, the kind of the see something, say something, Eric sees me not acting right. He can talk to me about it, but he can also go talk to the peer support team. And it's not getting into anybody's business. I mean, I've done it multiple times. Dave, you need to call so-and-so.
Yeah.
He knows I don't need to go into anything in depth with that. Call Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
There's got to be a reason, because even I could go into all kinds of, Eric could be drinking, the second he gets off work until the second he gets back on duty. And I could tell, our team that all day long. They're going to call him, and he doesn't have to tell them anything. So they're going to have to draw it out regardless.
Yeah.
He's going to have a conversation. Dave's got tools. He's got things he can do to talk and break down the walls and things like that, and then get out, because it's going to be more beneficial for Eric to tell him, yes, I have this issue, than it is for me to tell Dave, and then Dave to go to Eric and say, hey, I heard you have this issue.
Right.
So those kind of things, the peer support team. And I've taken advantage of the support team, and it's not all just drinking. It's bad runs, things like that. I've never once had a problem with going home and drinking. And, you hear people like, oh, I go home and I deal with the pain from it and stuff by just dousing it and, in vodka or whatever. But,
bury it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what guys are terrible at.
That's what
we bury all that shit instead of dealing with it.
And firemen are horrible about it, because what do? We show up to fix things. That's it. We show up so that we can make things better. We don't go to somebody and say, hey, this is bad for me. So, it is, God, I can't remember how many years it's been now. Probably 4. Well, no, my little one. So 5-6 years now. I had a really bad run of pediatric or baby, baby arrest. And it was just boom, boom, right after another. And it did not matter what we would have done. These were, bad situations that were probably not going to have a good outcome regardless.
Yeah.
But we go in and we work, and it got, all of a sudden, we went on a 3-month-old, and my daughter's 3 months at the same time.
It's close to home.
All of a sudden, I can't stop thinking about that kid all the time for, weeks or more. And it just so happened that Dave, who now heads that team, and he was in a similar role, but he wasn't heading the department at the time. He and I were partners on the medic. Back we used to run 2 paramedics on a truck, so we were on there, and we're on there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And So I was like, Dave, something's up. I don't know what's going on. This is the problem. And it would, our CISM, or our critical incident response team, came out after the last bad run and talked to us. And then Dave started following up with me, and I started talking to him, and then he would just check in. And it took a good 6 months before I didn't think about that kid all the time. It wasn't affecting my day. I could go home. I wasn't kicking the dog. I wasn't smacking my wife. I wasn't yelling at my kids all the time. As soon as stuff stopped, I would think about that kid. And so it got to a point, and I would start critiquing all the things that I did on that run.
What we could have done.
Yeah, what I could have done. And the thing is, I mean, it's you literally, walking in, we all knew walking into that run, there was no fixing.
Yeah.
Nothing. We did what we did for the sake of that child, knowing, because you just know sometimes, but you don't do anything different. And so I got to a point where now I have to go through every morning. Doesn't matter what it is. Eric's on the truck with me, anybody else, I get that airway kit and I have to check it, because I know that all my pediatric stuff is perfect. So now I don't have, that's something I don't have to worry about.
That's a hindsight.
Yeah. And that's a learning from hindsight. But like I said, the division has taken that and learned we can't let these guys and girls, or men and women, just be. We have to talk to them. That CISM team, that's not, Eric had a bad run. So Eric,
what does that stand for?
Critical incident stress management.
Okay.
So, and they come out right now, 3 a.m. We have a bad run. There are CISM team members who are on duty, and anybody. Eric may have been on the engine that just drove there. We all piled in the medic. He drove the engine out. If he sees something, he can say, you need to get the CISM team right now. And doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't have to be a boss. Doesn't have to be the person who had a bad day. Anybody sees it, they can call and say, you need to come talk to these guys now. So, that right there is learning from that, that hindsight right there. I mean, and they've done a really good job of taking care of that for us.
Are you bringing up Sean's?
Well, so I'm going to try to bring up Ray's and then Sean's here. Again, I'm trying to.
So,
hang on. No.
Well, while you're finding
again, the laptop's to everyone out there. It's not because of drinking. Literally, laptop is across the garage
here
at
at
this
feet
point.
further away.
All right. No. Yeah, I can't see it.
But no,
I'll read it here real quick. So Ray said at one point here, it has to be difficult to hindsight in the USA. Again, Ray lives in Vietnam. He's from the UK. He's lived in the USA. He's been around the world doing this stuff, and he's been a great contributor to the podcast. Obviously, we talked about him also supporting our sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton. He says the USA, as the majority, never take ownership of their decisions. It's easier to blame someone else for your poor decisions. I get that outsider perspective, especially in this current climate we're in, but I also can relate that to a lot of things you're talking about. Is you can absolutely blame others. That's happening still today. Obviously, we the whole COVID, the whole political, all that stuff. But I'm not even going to get into that at this point. But to your point, Ray, it's interesting because this is someone like Eric, you're a part of this. Brad, you're a part of this, and Brad, you're sharing all that stuff. Is that what's easier to talk about is the masses, the mass, population, the bigger issues. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, is that what's fascinating to me, and being a sociology major by trade is, by education, is that I studied that to a level, bachelor's degree. You can say it's bullshit or whatever you want to say, but fast forward now, almost 20 years later, and people care more about strangers they've never met and they never will meet, but just based on the overall issues, that they care more about those people that are they've never met because they have this in their head that it's going to be better if they can provide to these strangers that they've never met, they don't know their life stories, more than the people that are close to their life. And then you go to this occupation with Eric and Brad, you sharing this stuff, is that you bring up this 1 3-month-old. And people may have seen that on the news if it showed up. They may have, if they dial a little bit further in, they look at stats, they look at all this stuff. But what I really took from your story there is that you don't necessarily have to know that person, but it's still someone and some experience that you actually have identity with.
Yeah.
That you're making your day-to-day decisions on, and how you treat people on your job, how you treat people in your personal life, how you handle yourself day to day. And I would implore everyone else out there is that whether or not you're on that type of thing with your job, but I would implore everyone to maybe reframe your life, that every day you actually are making your decisions on your everything, how you wake up in the morning, what you do on your day-to-day basis, on your everyday tasks, like you're talking about in your job. You're the one that actually looks after that part of your day-to-day tasks. You will not let anyone, if anyone else has that duty, you're like, hey, let me look at it too, because you have a personal experience with it. I would say the whole hindsight with Ray's comment is like a lot of things going on right now is it's still based on, in my opinion, and you look at Twitter, you look at like the politicians, you look at people every day and in the USA, right? It's like they're living lives that their day-to-day life, in their mind, they think this is the biggest picture, like, helping these strangers and doing all this stuff. It's like, what are you doing at home? What are you doing in your day-to-day? How are you interacting with your job, your people, your coworkers, the people you interact with? That should be, in my opinion, a primary over a secondary, which is, I feel like, what we do with that hindsight is 2020. The hindsight is 2020 is not only your actions necessarily on your day-to-day basis, but a lot of times I think it's actually trumped by the actions of, well, if we air quotes, we would have done things differently a year ago, we could have been further on. It's like, what the fuck did you do with your day? Did you sit on your couch and you were on Twitter? Did you watch the news? Did you watch the TV? You watched the media, and you did all these things from your comfortable house while we were all quarantined? Or were you out there doing what you guys were doing and you were actually in the thick of it? I'm of the opinion that it's like everyone's opinion is valued. However, you have to give credibility to what that day-to-day is about. It's not just talking about it. It's not just watching things. It's about being out in the world and interacting with your fellow people, whether you know them or not. But as soon as you know them, as soon as you have an interaction with, like you guys have interactions with strangers all the time, and they may be strangers for the rest of your life, but that personal interaction will absolutely, in my opinion, be stronger and more valued than your so-called interactions on social media, on the mass media, on your opinions of how things should be. If you're not getting out there and doing it and learning from your personal experiences, your opinion is down here, and the people that are out doing things is way above you. You just don't, because your hindsight being 2020 or whatever, like you look back on what you learned about what other people were doing last year, 20 years back, 50 years back. If you weren't, that's an opinion. I think there's more factual knowledge and data from the people that were actually doing things and having the interactions and learning from their own personal mistakes and also personal shortcomings at the very most, is that they are the ones that you should be listening to. Not the people who just talk about it. So that was my response to Ray's comment.
Well, and I was going to bring up what Sean said. I didn't know if you were going to bring up his
Yeah,
comment
go
or
ahead.
not, but
I knew you were going to.
it related to what you were talking about, Brad, about some of those runs. So for background, in case you guys did not listen to when Sean was on the podcast, or any of our other listeners did not listen to that. So Sean was 20 years in the military, and most of that was, or part of that was at least during the last 20, to give you some perspective on what he's gone through. But he talked about, with his personal story, he was driving a Humvee and made a turn, and that turn didn't work out for the guys that were in that Humvee. And he's lived with that since then.
Mm-hmm.
But getting in the truck the next time, now you're questioning, do I go left? Do I go right?
Right.
Because of those experiences. But he had said trauma response, and you guys being firefighters and paramedics, you guys deal a lot with trauma. He said trauma response on the battlefield, they taught us to focus in on the process and follow it.
Yes.
Not think about who they were or what's wrong with them. Eric, you talked about when you're going on that run for that same location, that same person in a 24-hour period.
Right.
Steve brought up the whole callous. Like, you're not being callous necessarily to their situation and the fact that you've already been there, and you're being it's like, oh, I've already been here, now I'm a dick.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, you've got to put all your personal feelings aside and do your job. Like, whatever feelings, whatever emotions you have towards that situation, you've got to put all that shit aside, because what's the primary thing? Administering response to that situation, to that person, whatever comes up. So that's where, like, the hindsight, like, you think about what you've done in the past and maybe you can learn from that, but you can't necessarily completely disregard it, because you still have to go into that situation where, what is your primary responsibility? Your primary responsibility is aid to those people. So whatever personal feelings you have towards that person or towards that area, you've got to put that shit aside and actually deal with what's in front of you. You learn from what you've done already. And so if you're on that same run, that same location multiple times in a week, you put your personal feelings aside and, like, okay, this is what's going on. This is a situation. Now I have to deal with that situation. You're focused more on the situation ahead of you, learning from what's behind you, but you're not dwelling necessarily on what's behind you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
This is also parallel also in your personal relationships. I want to make sure that we don't miss on that point, right? So these are the things. You guys are both married, correct?
Yes.
All right. So, Nate, you're married.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married. Personal relationships, friendships, romantic, whatever, right? Whatever you call it. And I hope you guys still consider marriages romantic relationships. We glance over that with like a significant other. That transition, right? You're like, I have this romantic relationship, and at some point it becomes a significant other. Probably not the best transition.
Shouldn't it be the most significant other? You know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point.
But sometimes that relationship becomes your
job.
job.
That is totally to your point. It does. It goes from being the most significant person in your life, because what are you doing for that however long it is you're dating or courting or whatever, everything is about that person. I got to get off work right now. Oh man, if I get out of work a half hour early, I can get this done, to this done, to this done, to go see that person. And now it's to the significant other.
I love it.
I
love what you just did with the mom. All right,
should be the most significant person.
All right, side note, right? So this could be another podcast story of changing someone that you've known for a long time as a significant other to the most significant other, or transitioning back to. That's a great point, and a great just using the English language on when you look at your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your best friend, whatever the fuck it is this is the most significant relationship I have. act accordingly.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
We don't always do that. But I look at this as that, you have these relationships and you deal with these decisions that you learn from. There's a lot of value there that I think if you do, I love that you introduced that, Brad, is that, the most significant relationship should be just that. First of all, there's an argument to say that the most significant relationship is with yourself. And then after that is someone that you hold at the highest value. And you have to remember that. And it's a grind. There are these things that you build up those calluses. You build up these things that you go through all these runs and stuff like that. This is another metaphor, right? You go through the runs of your family life. You go through the runs of your day-to-day life and your house life. And it's like bills and, you have to do this. You have to do that. You have to take care of this. It's like there was a time in your guys' career and your everyday life that you wanted to do these things because that's what you were searching for. This was the next step. Those calluses can actually be a tool to you guys and everyone out there, is that we can actually learn from these things that we do. It's not always mistakes. Again, I want to really focus on the hindsight being 2020 as the shortcomings. How can you be better going forward? We had the comment of, what would you do, change and do all this stuff. That's a good exercise, but it's not necessarily effective, because I really think that we can grow, and that's got to be the focus. Your guys' job, the things that, with Ray introducing, being in the USA and all that stuff. And I've done my best to not really dive down that last 2 years of that, with the hindsight being 2020 and the significance of using that as the year 2020. But I think that's something that we can all really grow from. And as long as you're not following a personal narrative of where you were at that point in your life, no matter what it might be, of joining a career or the last, for you guys, 12 years, or that run you were on, or whatever it might be that you were doing, you're again, we're trying not to get into it a little bit, but I mean, your health and fitness goals. If I would have just continued to exercise, if I would have started exercising 5 years ago, I would be in a better place. All these things, it's about growth, in my opinion. And I know that might be a repetitive thing for some of you guys on this podcast that are listeners, but there's a reason for that. Hindsight being 2020 is absolutely an astute way of looking at things. And I think that it's something that we can all learn from, but it's like, what are you actually taking from that? To Sean's point that's listening, Sean Anderson, it's a slippery slope. It's not about like looking back. If I would have done things differently, if I would have invested in Apple 20 years ago, I would have made a shit ton of money. Cool, bro. Me too.
Yeah.
Are you investing now? Well, no, but if I would have done it back then, it's like, right. So what did we learn from this? Right. You got $5, you got $100, you got $1,000. Do you want to invest in something now? Well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's like, Jesus, like you didn't fucking learn anything. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I'm tired of listening from you. So I would like to go into the closing remarks on the how is hindsight 2020, and we'll go to the guests on this one. Either one of you guys can actually comment on that, but full picture, career-wise, personal life, whatever it is hindsight 2020? Closing remarks.
I think hindsight is 2020 only, but you have to have, it's obviously perspective on it, and it's all relative. That's the biggest thing. It's all relative. And, obviously, like you said, closing remarks and stuff, just to touch on something that you had said with, the growth thing. And then also to go back to the gentleman who was talking about, the complaining and not taking responsibility and stuff.
Yeah.
Is, in my opinion, there are two things or there's two responses that kind of hinder and also help growth. One is you have to have extreme ownership if you want growth.
Love it.
Extreme ownership. And that right there, I think people don't take enough extreme ownership, but the other side of it is they BCD. They blame, complain, and defend.
Yeah.
That's great. If you're blaming things on somebody else, if you're complaining about something else and you're defending what you did, you're not growing at all. You have to take extreme ownership for what happened, regardless of whether it was, I don't want to say regardless whether it was your fault, but nobody cares that I blamed it on someone else, even if it was their fault, because your boss, your whomever, they don't want to hear you tell me why you didn't do the job because somebody else screwed it up. Take extreme ownership into that. And those are two books that I love. Extreme Ownership. I recommend anybody read that. Jocko Willink. Yep. I've read that thing
Former Navy
3-4
SEAL.
times.
Yep.
In the past 6 months, I've probably read it at least 3 times. It's that good. You learn from it, and it's all about growth.
Love
and
it.
Not BCDing.
He's got a great podcast as well.
He does. I listen to that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are the things I try to take those as far as growth goes. And I think that you can take those two things into the hindsight being 2020. It is all relative because yes, if I took a left turn instead of a right turn today, I might not have been 5 minutes late. That's easy. That's an easy hindsight.
Yeah.
I did. Okay. I was 5 minutes late. I took the wrong turn. I didn't blame it on anybody else, complain about it or defend it. I took the wrong turn. That being said, if we would have, if we wouldn't have put the bourbon or the rye up in the attic and then brought it down, maybe we wouldn't have done it for 8 months. And then 8 months later, maybe it doesn't taste as good. So I think, you learn from that kind of stuff, accept it, take responsibility or own it, and then move on from it. And that right there is how you can use that, that hindsight to have the growth, which is exactly what we've said the whole time is what you want.
Absolutely. Eric?
I don't know how to follow up with that, but yeah, hindsight's always going to be 2020, but just learn from it, press on, prepare for tomorrow.
All right. It's good.
Yeah.
Nate?
I think, and I know we've touched on it in previous episodes. I think sometimes when we talk about hindsight being 2020, we get so bogged down in decisions that we've made in the past that we view as mistakes. And we don't necessarily appreciate that those decisions put us where we are currently. The best thing to do with those is instead of focusing on the negative of those decisions is to learn from them. And that's what I think Brad talked about in his closing remarks. And I know Sean's brought up numerous times, either when he was on or in some of the comments and episodes since, is not focusing on the mistakes that you've made, but learning from them. But also you don't necessarily have to learn from mistakes. Sometimes you just learn from decisions that you made. They could have been the right decisions, but you still learn from them when you're going forward. So every decision you make can be a learning opportunity going forward. Whether it was the right decision or wrong decision, you can still learn from that and make a better decision the next time. So sometimes we make a career change and that career change doesn't work out, and so we think, that was a bad decision. No, it may not have worked out, but that doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do, because it could have put you in a position to do something else that was a right decision for that time. So just because you did something in the past and you necessarily it necessarily didn't work out doesn't mean it was bad. You just learn from it going forward.
Okay.
I'm listening to you guys' comments, and they're all fantastic. So it's really interesting to me how people work. One when it is something that actually is something that you can, on a day-to-day basis, see improvement from, no arguments. So I don't know where this came in my mind. Pour a little more on my throat here.
Good. I gotta
Eric's
make
got,
sure I can make it home.
Eric's got an empty glass.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, just a little bit so they can
Kill it.
choose or kill it. Who's driving?
Me. That's
Right.
why I
Ooh.
stopped.
Thank you.
Work out my ratio here. Got a long walk ahead of me.
I got enough to cheers.
All right. So since middle school, I've had eyesight issues, like a lot of people. What do you do when you can't see things clearly?
Squint or
You
put
squint,
glasses
and
on.
then what happens? And then you put glasses on. So it's so
Squinting always
funny.
gets you so far.
And bear with me, it may not make sense, but this is something that I'm listening to all you guys talk about this. We're talking about this for a while, and we talk about hindsight being 2020 and the 2020 thing and all that stuff. You get those, those eye tests and all that stuff. And I have had so since my freshman year of college or freshman year of high school, I've worn contacts. I know that was a shortcoming of mine. I've worn contacts ever since. To this day, I've worn contacts because I want to see clearly. There's this absolute, just clear as day thing where I can't see clearly without contacts. So I've done the same thing as I've done every morning for the last 20 plus years. And I put contacts in so I can see clearly. I learned from that. If I want to see clearly, I have to do X.
When was the last time you had your prescription updated?
It's been a long time, actually. Side note, I've actually battled getting older, and I've done things in my life that, I've gone into the optometrist, and he's like, oh, actually, I scale this back, and all that stuff. And I'm not going to get into that, but, I'm on a day-to-day basis in certain areas, I'm beating getting older. Side note. But the point is that no, these are the things that it's like, there's that learning from it. This is a very, very literal thing. If I want to see clearly, I need to put contacts in. I know I need help. I know that I need to do this to see clearly. This is also very easily, to people that don't think about this, is a very parallel to the metaphorical side of it, is that if you want to continue to get better, growth, like you were talking about, Brad and Eric, it's like, it's like we know what we need to do sometimes. And if you slip, to me, it's that clear. If I go upon my day-to-day, tomorrow morning, I wake up, I feel good, and I don't listen to what I know is factual, what I've learned. And that day, tomorrow, Thursday, I don't put my contacts in. How's my day going to be?
Cloudy, foggy.
Cloudy, foggy. Driving to work is going to be a little messy.
You're going to be bumping into shit.
Like looking at people like, like, what are you looking at? Like, what are you looking at? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. We use this terminology of hindsight is 2020. And it's something that we don't necessarily go back to. Like I said, I was very disappointed in the mass media that they have not actually utilized this term with the year 2020, lazy. And also looking at this thing of like, where does that come from? Is 2020 vision? How many people do you know that either wear contacts, they should wear contacts or glasses, or they get LASIK? That if you don't, they're squinting. You're absolutely right, Brad. They squint. They're forcing it. They refuse to realize that they need to grow. They refuse that. It's like, no, I got this. And it's like, you can. have this if you do these things.
Use the tools.
Use the tools. Yeah, so absolutely right. If you learn from the things that you know your shortcomings have been, then you're going to continue to do this and also grow from that. I don't know where I came up with this part about the vision thing other than listening to you guys talk and then like, you know, but it's simpler than it's simpler than we give credit to. It's like, it's something that you can actually do things that you know will help you and people around you, but really you is that in your significant relationships, your most significant relationships,
See what you did there.
if you are bogged down with, do I put my contacts in so I can see clearly? If I do the things that he or her, whoever it is, want me to do, that I know will actually make things smoother? Or am I stubborn and I don't put my contacts in, or I don't put my glasses in because I don't, or glasses on because I don't like the way I look in glasses, or I don't like the way that contacts feel on my eyes? I'm just going to go my day-to-day life with this shortcoming.
What are you losing?
Could be a lot. How bad's your vision? How bad's your shortcoming?
You're losing perspective
Oh God,
too.
Metaphor.
You know,
Diarrhea
and
right
obviously you take the literal perspective up, but if you're not using the tools and you're not paying attention and growing with it, you're losing all that perspective.
Yeah. So again, going back to the hindsight 2020, it's one of those things that I feel like if you stick to what you thought you knew then, you know, when you were younger and you were like, you know, knew, if you're in your personal life, you're male, cock strong, right? And you're like, I'm going to just keep doing these things and all this stuff. And no matter what, I gotta, you know, no sacrifice, selling yourself short. You won't be able to see. Your vision's going, I'm not that old. My vision shouldn't be bad. I am dreading the day that I got to wear readers. And I will be that middle-aged male that I will squint till I got a headache for days because I don't want to be that old person with the readers on. If I learned anything from this podcast or anything in life, it's like, hey, you need readers. Like, cool. Can you give me some? So I can actually read. I can do. Who cares? I want the best everyday life. I want that. So if I want to have 2020 hindsight, I sure as shit better have 2020 vision going forward. And I think that is actually hand in hand, that the hindsight will actually feed your 2020 vision going forward.
Don't be afraid to accept the limitations that you have now.
That's absolutely right. So we got to grow. I love that. So guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Ray says he was 42 when he got his readers. God damn, that's next year. Thanks, Ray.
Eric, you wearing readers yet?
Nope, not yet.
Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you next week. Cheers.